Chapter 1253. This blood rained down from the sky like blooming flowers dancing in the air. The purple shadow blade, transformed from the shield of punishment, was like a flying shuttle that shuttled through the endless years. It was silent, sharp, and swift, Pei Ye's pupils constricted to the extreme, filled with infinite fear. He watched as his two legs left his body and flew in front of him. Shock, fear, all of it appeared on his face. All the previous fear, anger, and hatred had turned into unprecedented fear. All the martial ancestor sect disciples inside and outside the Xingqing Peak widened their eyes. All of them were terrified, and a chill ran down their spines. Their scalps were numb, and their feet were trembling. For all the supporters of the West Dome Peak Academy and Pei Yi, the scene in front of them would become a nightmare that they would never be able to forget. This moment would become a memory that they would never be able to forget. Even Xiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yan, and the others were faintly pale. They never thought that Pei Yi would meet such a miserable end. Chu Han had clearly spared his life. In the blink of an eye, he had lost a pair of legs. He had become a cripple. If Sidu Song's palm force had not slightly changed the trajectory of the Shadow Blade, Chu Han's attack would have probably cut Pei Yi in two. He had died here in an instant. At this moment, the faint purple light in Chu Han's eyes slowly faded. Among them, the 6 black dots had also disappeared. Compared to the 5-star demonic pupils that mainly focused on defense, the 6-star saint body bloodline that had evolved to a higher level of power, the shield of punishment was no longer limited to defense. It could also be used to attack. The shield of punishment, which had amazing defense, was so powerful that it was comparable to the power of a divine artifact once it was used to attack. Bang! Pei Yi, who had fallen from the sky, smashed heavily on the devastated fighting ring. The intense pain and the heavy injuries he had suffered made him go crazy like a mad dog. The miserable scream was chilling. Then, a large mouthful of blood gushed out, and he directly fell to the ground, unconscious. The chief disciple of the West Dome Peak. Just a moment ago, he was still looking down on everyone in high spirits. In the blink of an eye, he was as miserable as a dead dog. All of this was thanks to Chu Han. Looking at the reckless Pei Yi, the West Dome Peak Master Situ Song's eyes turned red with anger. He glared angrily at Chu Han, his eyes filled with cold, killing intent. How dare you? Every word was like ice, piercingly cold. In an instant, an unshakable, majestic aura erupted from Situ Song's body. He actually flew towards Chu Han's location. Stop! The North Star Peak's master, Yuan Shang, shouted in a grim voice. Mysterious East Peak Master Ao Yun Zhuang and South Spirit Peak Master Ning Xiushui were similarly shocked. No one had expected Sidu Song to be so enraged that he would disregard his status as a peak leader and attack a mere disciple. Things happened unexpectedly. However, no one could stop him in time. Chu Han's eyes darkened. He clenched his fists, and endless violent black kshetra, divine, lightning flowed out of his body. But in the next moment, all of the power that Chu Han had released was completely suppressed. The dark blue pillar of lightning was completely withdrawn, and even the true yuan that was circulating within his body had completely fallen into a state of stagnation and confinement. Oh no, it's the spirit binding art. Someone exclaimed. The spirit binding art. Sidu Song's original confinement art could instantly freeze the opponent's power into a static state. Everyone in the audience was shocked. Situ Songwa really wanted to take Chu Han's life to vent the hatred in his heart. Looking at Chu Han, who was almost unable to move, Yao, Long Xuan Xuang, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Yan, and the rest all turned pale. Big brother Chu Han, stop. Without any hesitation, Situ Song's condensed palm energy was like a wild dragon coming out of the sea, crushing towards Chu Han below. Chu Han's pupils shrank rapidly. Endless destructive aura surged down. Just when everyone thought that Chu Han was dead for sure, bang! A heavy and violent explosion spread across the sky above the high firmament platform. Violent true yuan mixed with chaotic spirit power spread across the entire arena. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Sidhu Song's fierce palm energy was the first to hit a light screen formed by thousands of runes. That's the rune art, and he's a grandmaster. Ning Xiushui, the master of South Spirit Peak, subconsciously blurted out. The rune art? A grandmaster? This simple sentence once again set off a monstrous wave in the hearts of everyone present. Each time was more shocking than the last. Each time was more unexpected than the last. Just like Chu Hen's endless trump cards, everything that happened today shocked everyone to the point that they began to doubt their own lives. Monster? Genius? At this moment, all the geniuses were overshadowed. Even Xiao Xingyi, who was ranked first on the Sky Marshal list, quietly became a foil to Chu Hen. Who could compare to him? No one could compare to him. However, in just an instant, the rune light screen formed by Reiki energy in front of Chu Hen was immediately shattered by Sidhu Song's overbearing palm energy. After all, he was the master of the Peak Courtyard. In the entire martial sect, he was second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. No matter how monstrous Chu Hen was, it would be difficult for him to compete with him. The dazzling rune light screen exploded into countless light fragments. Chu Hen's body also trembled, and at the same time, a trace of blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. He didn't die from one palm strike. Sidhu Song's second palm strike followed closely behind. A terrifying power that could topple mountains and overturn seas swept out. Just at this time, a figure with an extraordinary aura appeared in front of Chu Hen. Similarly, he raised his palm and raised it. His withered palm, which was surrounded by thick true yuan, solidly collided with Sidhu Song's palm energy. Boom! Bang! A thunderous explosion shook the heavens and the earth, and a chaotic wave of wind whistled through the sky. The stones under the Lingxiao platform were all shattered, and the surging true qi was like a tidal wave. The two of them retreated to the back. The person who came was none other than Beichen Peak's master, Yuan Shang. Sidhu Song. Yuan Shang frowned, showing his authority, and directly called out the other party's name, publicly attacking a disciple. Have you been living like a dog? At the last moment, he saved Chu Hen. Everyone from Beichen Peak Academy heaved a sigh of relief. Long Xuan Shuang and Yi Yao immediately rushed into the arena. Brother Chu Hen, how are you? Yi Yao asked anxiously, her beautiful brows full of worry. Chu Hen casually wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, smiled, and shook his head, indicating that he was fine. Then he raised his eyes to look at Sidhu Song in front of him, his eyes surging with coldness. Sidhu Song's eyes were even more red, and it could be said that he hated Chu Hen to the point of gnashing his teeth. He was glaring angrily at Yuan Shang, who was blocking in front of him. Before he could speak, an aura that made people tremble from the bottom of their hearts spread out in the sky above Xingqing Peak. Attacking in front of this sect master, are you all afraid that I don't exist? The indifferent tone of the voice was as calm as the water in an ancient well. But it was this emotionless sentence that directly caused the faces of all the Peak Academy masters to change suddenly. Sidhu Song's heartstrings suddenly trembled, and all the anger in his heart immediately disappeared completely. As if he had just woken up from a dream, Sidhu Song immediately knelt on both knees. Lord Sect Master, please calm down. I was confused for a moment. Please forgive me, Lord Sect Master. Whoosh! In an instant, all the disciples and elders of the entire Xingqing Peak stood up, bowed their heads, and muttered in unison. Chapter 1254. Lord Sect Master, please calm down. All the martial arts sect disciples and elders on the viewing platform of the entire Xingqing Peak bowed and lowered their heads, their faces filled with respect. Sidhu Song, the West Dome Peak Master, knelt on the ground. His face was no longer as arrogant and domineering as before. The formless supreme might seem to come from a monarch who stood above the masses. Although Dongfang Hengji's tone was calm and his expression was indifferent, everyone present seemed to feel a majestic oppression that penetrated into their souls. Dongfang Hengji slowly stood up from the stone chair. He looked down at Yuan Shang, Situ Song, and Chu Hen on the high firmament battle platform. The sect battle is a battle between the disciples of the various peak academies. Situ Song, as the West Dome Peak Academy master, has openly violated the sect rules and attacked the disciples of the sect without authorization. This sect master is really disappointed. Situ Song's face turned pale. However, he did not even have the intention to refute. He lowered his head and replied in a deep voice, "I am willing to accept the punishment." "Very well. From today onwards, Situ Song will be removed from the position of West Dome Peak Master and will be demoted to the position of Sect Guardian Elder. All the matters of the Peak Academy will be temporarily handled by Academy Master Mu Shan." Wow. As soon as these words came out, the audience could not help but be shocked. On the other hand, Situ Song's expression immediately turned deathly pale. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and unwillingness. He glanced at Yuan Shang and Chu Hen with some hatred. Immediately, he clenched his fists before slowly relaxing them. His voice trembled as he replied, "Yes, this subordinate accepts his punishment." The glory of the past gradually faded. Dongxian Peak Master Ao Yunzhuang and Nanling Peak Master Ning Qiushui looked at each other and sighed before shaking their heads. This time, the West Dome Peak Academy was really doomed. No one thought that Situ Song, who had always been arrogant and thought highly of himself, would make such a mistake. It really made people sigh. However, looking at Pei Yi, who had fallen on the high firmament battle platform, everyone could understand why Situ Song was so angry. Pei Yi was covered in blood, his legs destroyed. Not long ago, Situ Song still had an imposing appearance and looked down on everyone, seeing that his sword was about to reach the champion's throne. But he was suddenly defeated by a mere Chu Hen. Situ Song, who was the peak master of the West Dome Peak, also flew into a rage and emitted a strong killing intent. However, understanding was one thing, but no one agreed with Situ Song's actions. Just take the master of the Beichan Peak, Yuan Shang, for example. During the ranking competition of the top 16, his personal disciple, Wu Yin, had been humiliated to the extreme by Pei Yi, and Wu Yin had almost lost her life at Pei Yi's hands. However, Yuan Shang had endured it without saying a single word, and it was impossible for him to make a move against a disciple of his sect in public. At this moment, the atmosphere was a little tense. It was as if they were frozen in ice, and no one dared to speak loudly. However, at this moment, a soft voice came from the Beichan Peak Academy's crowd. "Chu Hen, champion. Beichan Peak Institute is the strongest." It was like a heavy hammer that broke the silence, like the first sound that brought up the rhythm. In an instant, a string of sonorous voices swiftly erupted from below the arena. "Beichan Peak Academy is the strongest. Chu Hen, champion. Beichan Peak Academy. Beichan Peak Academy. Chu Hen, Chu Hen." The crowd rejoiced, and the noise was monstrous. Surging cheers that could topple mountains and overturn the seas started to resound throughout the arena. At this moment, Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Wu Yin, Ning Yu, and the other top geniuses on the Heaven Martial rankings all looked at Chu Hen with gazes of admiration. Even the expression of the number one, Qiu Xingyi, was slightly moved. "Beichan Peak Academy." A shout that hadn't been heard for a long time. All the higher-ups and elders of the Beichan Peak Academy actually had an indescribable feeling of sourness, and even Dean Luo Tsang's eyes couldn't help but be suffused with traces of red light. How many years had it been? The Beichan Peak Academy had always been in existence at the bottom, and at this moment, it had finally become the main character. On the soaring cloud battle platform, Peak Lord Yuan Shang heaved a deep sigh of relief. Ever since he became the Peak Lord, he had never felt as comfortable as he did today. He turned around and looked at Chu Hen, who was standing behind him. Their gazes met, and Yuan Shang nodded slightly and said in a low voice, "Thank you." Chu Hen was stunned. Beside him, Yi Yao's eyes trembled slightly. "Master, Peak Master?" Yuan Shang smiled in relief. "Sorry, little Yao, I wronged you before." Yi Yao revealed a knowing smile. and her heart also felt relieved. The sect war, it quietly came to an end. That day was bound to become a grand chapter in the history of martial ancestor. No one could remember how that day ended. They only knew that many Beichun Peak Academy disciples shouted until their throats were hoarse, and many martial ancestor disciples were still in a daze until nighttime. Beichun Peak Academy. A counterattack. After experiencing this battle, they rose again. Similarly, after the sect war, the Heaven Martial Leaderboard also welcomed an unprecedented reshuffle. The first place was still Dongxian Peak Academy's Qiu Xingyi. Chu Han directly rose to second place as a strong dark horse. As for how serious Pei Ye's injury was, he still won against Wang Li, so he was still third place. However, this third place no longer had the arrogant demeanor of the past. Thousand Illusion Sacred Physiques, Wang Li fell to fourth place. Qi Qining was fifth place. Wu Yin fell to sixth place. In addition, Yi Yao and Long Xuan also entered the Heaven Martial Leaderboard because they defeated the 8th place Kai Feng and 10th place Yang Ao respectively. Of course, there were also people who were not satisfied with Long Xuan's ranking. I feel that junior sister Long's ranking is too low. She should be ranked 7th, or even ahead of senior brother Wu Yan. On the square of Heaven Martial Peak, many martial arts sect disciples gathered below the newly erected, majestic stone tablet. On the stone tablet, there were names written in bold strokes, like the stars in the sky, dazzling to the eyes. That's right, I also feel that junior sister Long's ranking is too low. She could almost fight to a draw with senior sister Qianying. Although she lost in the end, her strength is far beyond the 10th place. This is just a temporary ranking. In the future, you can still challenge each other. The Heaven Martial Leaderboard ranking is different from the Benevolent. There is no need to be too detailed. That's true. This year's Beichun Peak Academy is really too strong. 3 new disciples. It's simply earth-shattering. I wonder who is stronger between Chu Han and Qiu Xingyi. I support Qiu Xingyi. After all, he has dominated the Heaven Martial Leaderboard for so many years. A few years ago, there was no one who could rival him. It's impossible that his cultivation did not increase over the years. Moreover, Qiu Xingyi's bloodline limit is a supreme grade Saint Physique. I also support senior brother Qiu Xingyi. Although Chu Han defeated Pei Yi, with senior brother Qiu's strength, he can easily win. I feel that Chu Han is stronger. Apart from his powerful cultivation at the 7th rank of the Eternal Realm, he is also a zone-level rune master. In terms of overall combat strength, I feel that Chu Han is stronger. That makes sense. I really hope that one day, the two of them can fight. If there was any regret in the sect war, it would be Qiu Xingyi's absence this year. His opponent went up. Would he continue to dominate his ranking, or would he change hands? This had become a mystery to everyone. Chapter 1255. For several days, the heat of the sect war did not die down. Everyone in and out of the martial sect was constantly discussing the shocking scenes that had happened on the day of the decisive battle. The Heaven Martial Leaderboard welcomed an unprecedented reshuffle. The Beichun Peak Academy, which had been at the bottom for many years, also completed an earth-shattering counterattack with Chu Han's victory and Yi Yao and Long Xuan's entry into the leaderboard. They changed their fate of being at the bottom. As for the West Sky Peak Academy, they were completely defeated this time. Not only did Pei Yi fall, even the Peak Master Sidhu Song was pulled down from his throne. Apart from Pei Yi, Yang Ao, Xiao Ming, Lu Liao, and the other geniuses on the leaderboard were also in a miserable state. Especially Lu Liao, whose street tree was destroyed. This also announced that he would never be able to climb up again. Beichun Peak Academy. The scenery was beautiful and the environment was quiet on the peak. Hearty laughter could be heard coming from an elegant and spacious courtyard. Haha, this time, our Beichun Peak Academy can finally hold our heads high. Let's see who dares to call me Second Brother Wu in the future. What's wrong with Second Brother Wu? He seems to have quite a personality. Junior Sister Qinkai, can you not laugh at me? This nickname is simply the greatest insult to me. Ha ha ha. Then, there was a burst of laughter, In the spacious and bright lobby, a simple and unadorned round table was filled with delicacies, exquisite desserts, and fine wine. Chu Hen, Long Xuan Shuang, Yao, Wu Yin, Wu Mian, Zhao Qingkai, and Zhao Qingyi sat in a circle. The atmosphere was relaxed and lively. The yin-yang beast, Noni, lazily lay at the entrance and basked in the sun. From time to time, he would glance back at them, as if to him, the gathering of these humans was not interesting at all. Come, junior brother Chu Hen, let me toast you. Wu Yin held the wine cup in her hand, her eyes filled with admiration. Forgive me for what I said that night. I was too short-sighted. Senior brother Wu Yin, you are treating me like an outsider. I know that you're also thinking about me. There's no need to say such xenophobic words. Wu Yin nodded. All right, I won't say this again. After saying that, the two of them gently clinked their wine cups and raised their heads to drink the wine in one gulp. That's great. We should have joined the Beichen Peak Academy. Zhao Qingkai said regretfully. We're all disciples of the martial arts sect, so we're all the same, Wu Yin replied. It's not the same. Those people from West Sky Peak Academy were too arrogant. Now that they've been defeated like this, it's really satisfying. Zhao Qingkai clenched his fists. That's right. Yao also chimed in. Her tone was filled with dissatisfaction as she said, that Situ song is too despicable. Big brother Chu Hen clearly spared Pei Ye's life, but he courted death himself. In the end, Situ Song still wanted to kill Big brother Chu Hen. Lord Sect Master's punishment was also unfair, so he only removed him from the position of Peak Master. You're right. The punishment is too light. It doesn't hurt at all. I feel like I'll be back to being a Peak Lord soon. Wu Yin shook her head when she heard Yao and Zhao Qingcai's scolding. Actually, Lord Sect Master's punishment is not light at all. Isn't this light? Yao asked in return. Wu Yin took a sip of wine and said, all you don't know this, but this time, not only did Situ Song lose his position as a Peak Master, but he also lost the right to compete for the position of Vice Sect Master. Vice Sect Master? A few of them were stunned. That's right. Due to the fact that Lord Sect Master has been in closed-door cultivation for many times in recent years, the affairs are basically handled by the 8 Peak Masters. However, the opinions of the high-ranking officials of the 4 great Peak Academies are often not unified. Therefore, there's a need to nominate a Vice Sect Master who has the right to make decisions. Wu Yin paused for a moment before continuing. Among the 4 great Peak Masters, the profound East Peak Master, Ao Yun Zhuang, is the youngest. Relatively speaking, he's less experienced. Although the South Spirit Peak Master, Ning Xiushui, is qualified, she's a woman after all. She's indecisive, so she's not suitable to be the Vice Sect Master. On the other hand, our Beichen Peak Master, Yuan Shang, has always been criticized because the Beichen Peak Academy has always been at the bottom. Therefore, there's a high chance that Situ Song will be elected as the Vice Sect Master. In the end, because of this matter, Situ Song has directly lost his right to be elected. After listening to her explanation, everyone could not help but be stunned. They did not expect the martial sect's high-ranking officials to have such an inside story. Heh, Zhao Qingyi smiled a little helplessly. In other words, not only did Situ Song lose his position as a Peak Master, but he's also lost his position as the Vice Sect Master. That's right. Moreover, according to the martial sect's rules, any high-ranking officials who are demoted won't have a chance to be promoted for at least 10 years. In these 10 years, I believe there will be many capable elders who stand out. At that time, it'll be even more difficult for Situ Song to return to being a Peak Master. Hearing Wu Yan's words, the punishment this time was indeed not light. The West Sky Peak Academy would probably become the Beichen Peak Academy for a very long time. Brother Chu Hen, who exactly are you? You really surprise us more and more. Zhao Qingyi said the question in her heart with the help of the alcohol. Not only her, Zhao Qingkai, Wu Yin, and Wu Mian also looked at each other in surprise. I grew up with Big Brother Chu Hen and Big Sister Xuan Xuan. Yao spoke first. Oh, that must be an amazing place. Nope, it's just a very small place. The place that Yi Yao mentioned was the former Sacred Star Empire. Meanwhile, Chu Hen could not help but fall into deep thought. Putting aside the time in the Sacred Star Empire, he had no idea what kind of person he was. At the same time, this was the main reason why he came to the martial sect. Meow. Suddenly, the yin-yang beast Noni, who had been lying at the door, suddenly stood up and looked at the sky outside in shock. At the same time, an extremely strong spatial rhythm was transmitted from outside. Everyone was shocked. They looked at each other and immediately got up and walked out the door. Rumble. The clouds in the 9 heavens changed. The originally clear sky was now covered with vast and majestic clouds. The clouds covered the sky, and dazzling rainbows traversed the sky. It was as spectacular as a god descending from the heavens. What's going on? What's going on? What happened? Many martial sect disciples were alarmed. One by one, figures flashed out from the various peaks and looked at the sky with a serious expression. Even the elders and higher-ups of the various peak academies looked at the changes in the sky with a serious expression. Boom! Under numerous gazes that were filled with bewilderment, the gorgeous divine light that enveloped the sky above the martial sect actually emitted tens of thousands of dazzling holy lights. The endless golden holy light was like the heavenly light of the gods. In an instant, the entire martial sect seemed to be bathed in a glorious divine charm. Clang! There seemed to be a melodious sound of a bell in the sky. In the brilliant holy light, a luxurious palace that exuded endless holy aura appeared. The glazed bricks and tiles were dazzling. It was like the legendary immortal palace god. That is, the expressions of everyone in the martial sect changed. All the higher-ups and elders widened their eyes, and their pupils trembled. The incomparably gorgeous and spectacular scene was like a mirage that had not been seen for 1,000 years. On both sides of the palace, there was a majestic pillar. The pillar was covered with mysterious runes and secret scrolls. Then, a giant golden dragon with shining scales crawled out from the pillar on the left, and a giant python with black scales and a horn stretched out from the pillar on the right. The two giant beasts were like prehistoric monsters, each coiled around the large stone pillars on both sides of the palace. They opened their mouths, full of ferocity and anger. Looking at this scene, the entire martial sect was stirred up with a strong restlessness and uneasiness. Wu Yan's pupils trembled violently. She could not help but clench her fists and murmured in a low voice. The battle between the dragon and python, the gathering of the wind and clouds, the battle between the dragon and python, the gathering of the wind and clouds? Hearing these words, Chu Hen, Long Xuan Shuang, and the others were puzzled. Wu Yin said softly while holding her breath, "The call for the holy war is coming." Chapter 12:56. The dragons and pythons are fighting. The wind and clouds are gathering. The holy war is coming. Looking at the shocking phenomenon in the sky above the martial sect, Wu Yan's eyes were filled with shock. Chu Hen, Long Xuan Shuang, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest did not understand what she meant. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. Rumble, the sky above the 9 heavens was filled with divine light. The luxurious and resplendent glass palace was like a golden palace god. It was magnificent and incomparably spectacular. Especially the golden dragon and black python coiled around the 2 heavenly pillars outside the palace. They were even more domineering and ferocious. The golden dragon and giant python opened their mouths, revealing their sharp sword-like fangs. The entire martial sect was trembling uneasily. Without waiting for Chu Hen and the others to ask Wu Yan about the reason behind it, there was a wong-wong, spatial fluctuation in the sky. Under the shocked gazes of countless martial ancestor disciples, the door of the golden palace slowly opened screech. Accompanied by a loud and clear bird cry, a nimble and beautiful golden spirit sparrow flew out from the main hall. Looking at the golden sparrow, everyone's eyes lit up. From afar, the golden sparrow was holding something in its claws. That thing looked like a golden book. It was overflowing with light, like an emperor's book. The golden spirit sparrow drew a beautiful light pattern in the sky and flew in the direction of the sky marshal peak. Buzz, buzz, then the rhythm of the space above the 9 heavens gradually calmed down. The magnificent golden palace and the 2 dragon pythons coiled around the heavenly pillars gradually became illusory. In the end, they concealed themselves and disappeared from the sky above the martial sect. Although the scene in front of them had disappeared, the disciples of the martial sect were becoming more and more uneasy. Noises of discussion broke out on the various peaks. Wu Yin also shook her head gently as she muttered, "I didn't expect the Holy War enlistment to come so suddenly. I didn't expect that we would encounter it." Hearing her words, the people around her were even more confused. "What is a crusade?" Yi Yao couldn't help but ask. The enlistment ceremony between all large sects and forces in the Midland. Simply speaking, it's a competition between disciples of many powerful sects and clans. It's also called the competition between dragons and serpents, the gathering of winds and clouds. It's a competition between golden dragons and serpents, and it's a holy war. The winner will be seen through the enlistment ceremony. The golden dragon soared in the 9 heavens, and the giant python swept across the earth. Hearing these words, everyone couldn't help but imagine the boundless layout of the world in their minds. Will all sects and clans in the Midland participate? Yi Yao continued asking. No. Wu Yin shook her head resolutely. Only the high-ranking sects and forces are qualified to participate in the Holy War recruitment. Second-rate forces are the lowest standard, and they have to be high-ranking forces. Apart from that, there will also be many geniuses from the Saint clans participating. Only the upper echelons of power could participate in the Holy War. Just this sentence alone made everyone sigh incessantly. Since the ancient time, the structure of the Midland had been changing all the time. Among the large sects and forces, they dominated a region. Conflicts between sects and clans were not few. After thousands of years of development, who was strong and who was weak? Who lived up to their name? Who was the Saint Dragon? Who was the Flood Serpent? The answer could only be found in the Holy War recruitment. In the past tens of thousands of years, the Holy War recruitment has been going on until now. The longest interval was nearly 1,000 years, and the shortest interval was still 100 or 200 years. Wu Yin continued to explain in detail to the others. The Holy War recruitment is not only to prove the power of those sects and clans, it is also a cruel battlefield to settle the grudges between those sects and clans. Every time the Holy War recruitment is held, countless outstanding geniuses will fall. In this case, why do we still participate? Isn't it better to hide our strength, bide our time, and accumulate power? Zhao Qingkai said his opinion. Wu Yin smiled and shook her head. Where there are people, there will be disputes, and where there are disputes, there will be the martial world. The world we live in has always been a huge vat of dye. In this world, there is no such thing as stability and peace. Even if we don't fight with the outside world, we can't guarantee that disputes won't come to us. Therefore, the only choice is to prove that we are strong enough. The Holy War recruitment is a battlefield to prove whether we are strong or weak. Chu Hen secretly agreed with Wu Yan's words. This world had indeed never been peaceful. For thousands of years, people had been deceiving each other, and only those who were strong could compete in this chaotic world. Another thing is, the places where the Holy War recruitment is held are basically ancient ruins left by the Great War of gods and devils thousands of years ago. There are countless ancient powers that have never been unearthed. The supreme inheritances of a human race, the demon race's emperors, and even the devil race's saint venerables. After she finished speaking, Wu Yin turned to look at Chu Hen with a hint of anticipation in her eyes. The Holy War recruitment is an opportunity for all geniuses. There are many unknown geniuses who obtained great opportunities during the Holy War recruitment, and from then on, they soared to the sky and transformed from pythons to dragons. However, Chu Hen did not respond to her words. His eyes were faintly filled with a hint of solemnity. Long Xuan, Yi Yao, Zhao Qingyi, and the others who were standing by the side also had their own thoughts in their hearts. The Holy War recruitment was held once every hundreds or even thousands of years. Moreover, only the upper echelons were qualified to participate. Indeed, it made the hearts of everyone in the world restless. However, there were countless skeletons buried behind the glorious battle achievements and the numerous outstanding achievements. On the peak of the precipitous mountain, Chu Hen stood alone, gazing at the magnificent and imposing mountains and rivers in front of him. The scenery was beautiful, and the mountains were like pillars. Feeling the strong wind blowing over from a peak, he felt as if he was about to reach the top of the mountain. Because of the Holy War recruitment, the entire martial sect was restless. The enthusiasm of the sect war was suppressed in less than half a day. No one discussed the rankings of the heavenly martial list anymore, and no one cared about whether Chu Hen could defeat Xiao Xingyi. All the topics of discussion were focused on the Holy War recruitment. It seems like your mood doesn't fluctuate much. At this moment, Wu Yan's voice came from behind. She walked to Chu Hen's side and stood beside him with a bright smile on her face. Chu Hen smiled faintly. For some reason, he did not have much anticipation for the Holy War recruitment that everyone was paying attention to. Perhaps to Chu Hen, his purpose of coming to the martial sect was only for the wheel of time. The Holy War recruitment is about to begin. I reckon that the top monstrous geniuses on the Wind Cloud list are all restless, Wu Yan said to herself. Wind Cloud list. Chu Hen was slightly stunned. Chapter 1257. The Wind and Cloud ranking list is a compilation of the rankings of the disciples from all the powerful clans in the Midland. There are only 50 of them in total. Comparatively speaking, that is the true ranking of the top-notch geniuses. Compared to the Wind and Cloud ranking, our martial sect sky martial ranking is not even worth mentioning, Wu Yan said. At the same time, there was a hint of excitement in his eyes. Is there anyone from the martial sect on the Wind Cloud ranking? Chu Hen asked casually. Yes, there's only one, Wu Yan replied decisively. In the entire martial sect, only Xiao Xingyi is on the Wind Cloud ranking, and he's ranked 46th. 46th? Chu Hen was stunned. There were only 50 people on the Wind Cloud ranking, but Xiao Xingyi, who was ranked first on the Heaven Martial ranking, was only ranked 46th. This was really surprising. Just based on this, it was enough to show that the Wind Cloud ranking was terrifyingly valuable. To be honest, our martial sect only has a few thousand years of history. Compared to Han Yun's sect, Profound Sun Palace, Equal Heaven Pavilion, and other sects that have been around for tens of thousands of years, there's still a gap. Among these sects, there are at least 2 people on the Wind Cloud ranking, especially for a top-notch sect like the War God Palace. They even have 5 monstrous geniuses on the Wind Cloud ranking. Their cultivation base has reached the Saint King stage, and they're known as the 5 minor Saint Kings. Saint King stage. When he heard those 3 words, even the corners of Chu Hen's eyes could not help but faintly shrink. A terrifying existence that surpassed the ancient eternity stage. A Saint King stage powerhouse could destroy mountains and rivers with a flip of his palm, and he could instantly kill an ancient eternity stage powerhouse while he was chatting. In this world, a Saint King stage powerhouse was regarded as the pinnacle of the pyramid. War God Palace. This name was not unfamiliar to Chu Hen. When they were in the tomb of the devil and immortal, it was precisely the elder of the palace of war gods, Cui Lai, who used the Xianyuan seal to seal by Qianyu's strength, causing Chu Hen and her to unintentionally enter the devil tomb of the Yama King, Cui Lai, even fought against 4 demon venerables from the demon city alone. The demon clan army was defeated bit by bit and fled in panic. Although half of Cui Lai's arm was cut off by the Green Hill Fox Junjianga in the end, the reverence everyone had for Cui Lai at that time was enough to show how powerful the god of War Palace was. Just the War God Palace alone had 5 top-notch Saint King realm geniuses. It was truly an astonishing feat. What's Xiao Xingyi's cultivation? Chu Hen hesitated for a moment before asking. Wu Yan's eyes darkened slightly as she looked at Chu Hen solemnly. She replied in a serious tone, "At the very least, it should be at the half-Saint King stage." Hearing his words, Chu Hen secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. He knew that Wu Yin was a very calm person. This was just a conservative guess of Qiu Xingyi. No wonder he hasn't participated in the sect war for 2 years. Chu Hen murmured. Wu Yin nodded in agreement. Some people said he was afraid of losing to Wang Li or Pei Yi, but they did not know that Qiu Xingyi did not have much expectation for the sect war. However, I think senior brother Qiu probably didn't expect you to join the sect war this year. Otherwise, I think he would have participated in the sect war again. Chu Hen smiled as he shook his head. You're too kind. You'll participate in the sect war, right? Wu Yin asked the question in her heart. Chu Hen did not answer. Instead, he quietly looked at the vast mountains and rivers in front of him as he pondered. A few days later, in the assembly hall of the Beichen Peak Academy, Chu Hen, Wu Yin, Yi Yao, and Long Xuanchuang were gathered here. This is the reward you'll receive based on your performance in the sect war. The Beichen Peak Master, Yuan Shang, and the Hall Master, Luo Tsang, stood inside the assembly hall as they looked at the 4 people in front of them with relief in their eyes. There was a long table in front of the 4 of them. There were several exquisite and luxurious items on the table. There was a wooden box in front of Wu Yin, which contained an elixir with dark golden spirit patterns and a strange saber. Essence Holy Elixir. Wu Yan's eyes lit up. Immediately, she looked at the saber. The saber was more than a meter long and did not look heavy, but when she held it in her hand, it was quite heavy. Wu Yin gently held the hilt of the saber, and a wave of obscure power spread out. In an instant, a circle of grayish-white light patterns overflowed, and a small part of the long table below was covered with a thin layer of stone. The demon cliff saber can make the body of anyone who touches it stiff and petrify. If it hurts someone's flesh, it will instantly block their meridians. The Hall Master, Luo Tsang, explained. Wu Yin was overjoyed. This demon cliff saber was a perfect match for her bloodline boundary force. In front of Yao, there was also an essence holy elixir. Apart from that, there were 2 tokens. The token was wide at the top and narrow at the bottom, with a longer middle section and 5 sides. One token was white and the other was black. In the middle of the 2 tokens, there was a Tai Chi Yin Yang rune pattern. The Yin Yang token contains the power of Tai Chi and Yin Yang. The white token represents Yang, while the black token represents Yin. It can be controlled from a distance and can kill people from thousands of miles away, Dean Luo Tsang continued to explain. In front of Long Xuanchuang, besides the essence holy elixir, there was also a black bow and arrow. The length of the bow was similar to Long Xuanchuang's own mystic rain bow, but the bow and arrow in front of her looked more simple and unadorned. The dark patterns were not exquisite, but it was very comfortable to look at. In addition to the bow, there was also an arrow. The arrow was about 1.5 meters long and had the same dark luster. The arrowhead was a sharp diamond-shaped, shining with a dark light. Moon chasing divine bow, flying star divine arrow. Under normal circumstances, it can condense true inner force into an arrow, and when combined with the flying star divine arrow, the arrow can lock onto the target and pursue the enemy all the way. It is very lethal. Listening to Luo Tsang's explanation, Long Xuanchuang's beautiful eyes were filled with a faint gentle light. She gently picked up the moon chasing divine bow, and a trace of warmth passed through her fingertips. Her beautiful eyebrows were filled with joy. At this moment, Chu Hen said with a puzzled look, "Where's mine?" As soon as he said this, Wu Yin and the other 2 beside him were stunned. Luo Tsang and Yuan Shang also looked at Chu Hen. It was said to be the reward for the sect battle. All 3 of them had it, but the one in front of Chu Hen was empty. Forget about divine elixir pills and divine weapons. There was not even a piece of scrap metal in front of him. Was there something wrong with this? He was a champion after all. It was impossible that there was nothing. Peak Lord Yuan Shang looked at him meaningfully and said, "Come with me to a place. The rest of you can go back first." Go to a place? Yi Yao and Long Xuanchuang looked at each other and could not help but feel a little strange. Wu Yin was quite calm, as if this was expected. Then, following Yuan Shang's instructions, the 3 of them left. Chu Hen, however, followed Yuan Shang in another direction. After walking across the long iron bridge and crossing the steep and spectacular suspended road, Chu-Hen arrived in front of a simple and unadorned hall under the guidance of Peak Lord Yuan Shang. The hall was not luxurious, nor was it made of colorful glazed tiles, but it gave off an indescribable feeling of majesty. Peak Lord Yuan Shang stopped at the edge of the steps and turned to Chu-Hen and said, "You going alone?" "Alone?" A trace of doubt flashed across Chu-Hen's eyes, but he quickly calmed down. He nodded and stepped into the hall. What entered his eyes was a spacious field of view. The atmosphere was quiet, the light was dim, and the faint smell of sandalwood floated in the air. The pillars on both sides of the hall were engraved with ancient patterns. Even if any restless person entered this place, he or she would quickly calm down. Chu-Hen's footsteps were very light, but in this empty place, it was quite clear. When walking to the center of the hall, Chu-Hen stopped and looked up at the throne room at the back of the hall. On the throne-like stone chair, a middle-aged figure with a calm temperament but exuding an invisible aura was sitting here. This person was none other than the master of martial sect, Dongfang Hengji. Disciple Chu-Hen pays respect to sect master. Chu-Hen cupped his fists, his eyes were calm, and he was neither servile nor overbearing. On the way here, he had already guessed who the person who wanted to see him was, so he did not have much mood swings at this moment. "No need to be so polite," Dongfang Hengji replied faintly. Chu-Hen nodded. "I wonder why sect master is looking for this disciple." Dongfang Hengji raised his eyes slightly, and there was a trace of deep meaning between his brows. He looked straight into Chu-Hen's eyes and said in a calm tone, "Perhaps I should ask you this question." "Ask me?" Chu-Hen was a little puzzled. "Yes. I also want to know, why did you come to my martial sect?" Dongfang Hengji's voice paused and then spat out a few words one by one. Demon Eye Clan, boom. Chapter 1258. "I also want to know, why did you come to my martial sect?" Dongfang Hengji's voice paused, and then he spat out a few words. Demon Eye Clan. In an instant, the flow of air in the entire hall suddenly sped up. Chu-Hen's pupils tightly shrunk, and his face could not help but turn a little pale. His eyes were fixed on the calm, middle-aged figure in the hall. Those eyes that were like those of a monarch were indifferent and dignified, and they were as steady as the mountains and vast seas. Finally, he was discovered. He only used the power of the Demon Eye's sacred body once in the sect war. It took less than 3 seconds to count to 3. It still couldn't escape the eyes of the master of martial sect. After a short silence, Chu-Hen's face eased, and there was no unfriendliness in Dongfang Hengji's eyes. In addition, the other party summoned him alone. He believed that the main reason was not to expose him. Looking at Chu-Hen, whose expression had eased, Dongfang Hengji's face also showed a gentle smile. At least he was sure that the other party came to martial sect without malice. "I want to borrow martial sect's time wheel." Without any hesitation, Chu-Hen's eyes flashed with determination, and he looked at the other party solemnly. Dongfang Hengji was slightly surprised and asked with some confusion, "Is that the purpose?" "Yes," Chu-Hen answered. "Why?" "To find out my background." "Oh." Dongfang Hengji was even more surprised. "Demon Eye, apart from that, I know nothing about myself." This was Chu-Hen's answer. Although the summary was very brief, it sounded inexplicably dry. Apart from a pair of demon eyes, there were no other clues. Therefore, he wanted to find his birthplace with the help of martial sect's time wheel. There was another long silence. Dongfang Hengji quietly looked at the handsome young face of His Highness. In the other party, there was a deeper determination and deep eyes than his peers. How much wind and rain had he experienced? Only then could he create such a psychological quality that was neither servile nor overbearing. Perhaps, does the master know anything about the Demon Eye clan? Chu-Hen asked tentatively. Dongfang Hengji shook his head. "I only know that the Demon Pupil clan used to be one of the 10 strongest sacred clans. Unfortunately, more than 20 years ago, the Demon Pupil Sacred Clan encountered a calamity. That calamity caused the entire Demon Pupil Sacred Clan to suffer an unprecedented loss. There were even rumors that the demon pupil clan was on the verge of extinction. Boom! As soon as these words came out, Chu Hen felt as if a thunderbolt had exploded in his mind. The words on the brink of extinction, in particular, were like a heavy hammer that struck his heart. How could this be? Chu Hen's hands were trembling faintly. He suddenly recalled what the Fox of the Green Hill, Jun Jianga, had said to him in the Immortal and Devil Tomb. Our fates are somewhat similar. A similar fate. Everyone in the world knew that the Green Hill Fox clan was known as one of the strongest demon clans. But in the past thousands of years, the Green Hill Fox clan had disappeared from this world. There were only a few of them left. Now that he thought about it, was this what Jun Jianga was referring to? Chu Hen's mind was trembling. His face was pale, without a trace of blood. If the demon pupil clan had been exterminated, then what about his parents? Thinking of this, an extremely cold current caused him to shudder. Perhaps I still need to borrow the time will? Dongfang Hengji asked calmly. Yes. Chu Hen's eyes were cold, and his eyebrows were full of determination. It had been more than 20 years. He did not want to live in such an unclear manner. What happened to the demon pupil clan that year, where his biological parents were? No matter what the result was, he had to know. Dongfang Hengji nodded gently. Come with me. With that, he walked down the hall and headed straight for the exit. Chu Hen clenched his fists slightly and immediately followed behind him. Sect Master. As soon as the two left the hall, the Beichen Peak Master Yuan Shang, who was guarding outside, also greeted them. We're going to the Heavenly Mystery Palace. You go to the Heavenly Martial List. There may be a little chaos there. Heavenly Mystery Palace? Yuan Shang was startled. That was the most tightly guarded forbidden area in the entire martial sect. Without the permission of the sect master, even the Four Peak Masters were not allowed to enter. Why did they suddenly want to go there? Yuan Shang glanced at Chu Hen behind the other party, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes, but he did not ask much. Yes, sect master. About half an hour later, Chu Hen followed Dongfang Hengji to a particularly spectacular sky peak. It was a magnificent giant peak suspended in the void, like a giant meteorite under the ninth heaven, with huge iron chains connected to the surrounding steep peaks. Each iron chain was shining with golden light, and the runes swayed. Looking from afar, it was like a chain locking a mortal palace, spectacular and peerless. A simple and unadorned palace stood on top of the mountain range. The palace was surrounded by tall walls, dazzling pagodas, as well as magnificent and lofty jade buildings. In front of the two was a 1,000-meter-long chain bridge. Clouds and mist lingered under the bridge, and the ninth heaven waterfall could be seen in the distance. Dongfang Hengji stepped on the chain bridge with steady steps, and Chu Hen followed closely behind. Just a few steps, Chu Hen felt two particularly powerful auras sweeping over from other places. Chu Hen's face changed slightly, but soon, these two auras were hidden. Needless to say, as the first forbidden area of martial sect, there were naturally masters guarding here all the time. If it was not Dongfang Hengji walking in front of him, but someone else, the masters hiding in the dark would not hesitate to kill him. The two walked on the chain bridge, and the body of the bridge swayed slightly. It didn't take long for the two to reach the other end of the chain bridge. Buzz, the moment they set foot on the opposite Ling Shao sky peak, a layer of water-like ripples appeared in the air, and the golden ripples slowly bloomed in all directions. Under the leadership of Dongfang Hengji, Chu Hen stepped on the peak as if passing through a layer of water. Immediately, they passed through the magnificent palace gate, walked past a luxurious pagoda building, and finally, the two came to the tallest quaint palace in the middle. The palace did not have a gate. It was completely open, but standing outside, he couldn't see anything inside. It was blurry and hazy. There was a plaque hanging above the palace. It was engraved with 3 striking characters, Heavenly Secret Palace. 2 elders, please open the main hall. This sect needs the time wheel. Dongfang Hengji said indifferently to the air. Chu Hen was startled. As soon as the voice fell, a strange wave of power spread in the air. In an instant, a layer of solid golden light curtain appeared at the entrance of the palace, countless dazzling silver light patterns spread out on the light curtain. Buzz, along with a slight tremor in the space, the solid golden light curtain quietly became illusory, as light as a gauze curtain. Then, Dongfang Hengji took the lead and stepped inside. Chu Hen clenched his fists and followed him up the steps into the palace. The interior of the main hall was a little dim, but the surrounding walls, palace pillars, and even the ground were engraved with extremely complex runes and secrets. A bright array pattern was intertwined, swaying with the soft light of fireflies. And in the middle of the main hall, there was a strange object placed. The whole shape was a bit similar to a large carriage, but this carriage was full of large and small gears inside and outside. In the middle, there was a wheel with a diameter of 5 or 6 meters. The wheel was covered in ancient lines and was facing the gate. It slowly rotated clockwise in an orderly manner, like the rings of time that were slowly passing by as it quietly rotated. Time wheel? Looking at the strange object in front of him, Chu Hen's eyes flashed with a lot of restlessness, excitement, desire, and fear. It was indeed fear. He was afraid of seeing a scene he didn't want to see. Dongfang Hengji raised his wrist slightly and took out a dark golden token. The token was engraved with a fierce sect character. Then he raised his hand and waved, and the token turned into a beam of light and flew towards the time wheel in front. Swish! When the beam of light flew into the time wheel, a strong wave of power spread rapidly. The next moment, the clockwise rotating wheel in the middle stopped rotating, and then, under the surprised eyes of Chu Hen, it slowly rotated in a counterclockwise direction. And the speed of rotation was getting faster and faster. Soon, it reached a rhythm that could not be seen with the naked eye. Buzz! The increasingly powerful fluctuations of power continued to stack up, and the light array patterns in the entire palace seemed to be activated, blooming with dazzling colors. The spirit patterns on the wheel were abnormally bright. Then, all the brilliant array patterns emerged with a soft light, and the light that filled the world gathered towards the center of the time. Well, wow. In the blink of an eye, the luxurious and dazzling wheel became illusory, and then a misty spiral passage appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. The gray misty passage was like the eye of the whirlpool in the storm nebula. An endless mysterious aura surged out from it. Chu Hen's eyes were filled with emotion as he looked at Dongfang Hengji in front of him. While feeling grateful, he was so excited that he couldn't speak. "I will wait for you outside," Dongfang Hengji said faintly. After that, he turned around and left the place. In the hall of the Heavenly Secret Palace, Chu Hen stood alone in the gray whirlpool passage, his hands clenched into fists, feeling that his heart was about to jump out of his chest. Then, with a movement of his body, Chu Hen jumped into the endless, mysterious passage. Buzz! Chapter 1259. Sky Marshal Peak. Buzz! All of a sudden, the surroundings of the Sky Marshal list became restless. A series of panic spread from the Tao platform of the reverberating star realm without any warning. The huge crystal ball that was originally as dazzling as a star became dim at this moment, and one after another, panicked figures were teleported to the bottom of the platform. Damn, what's going on? I was cultivating just now. What's going on? I'm about to break through to the ancient eternal realm. Many martial ancestor sect disciples were flustered, and several sect protector elders who were guarding here were also panicking. What's going on? I don't know, it was fine just now, but suddenly the starry dream stopped operating. Could it be that something happened to him? At this moment, a figure with a mountain-like momentum flashed over Sky Marshal Peak. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw this person. Peak Master Bei Chun is here. Peak Master, there's a problem with the starry dream. Everyone, don't panic. Yuan Shang shouted in a deep voice, his voice as powerful as thunder. Sect Master is using the time wheel, so the starry dream is temporarily suspended. What? Sect Master is using the time wheel? Everyone was stunned, but then they suddenly understood. So that's the case? I was scared to death. In this case, it should recover soon. The reverberation astral realm was a special illusion created with the wheel of time as the foundation. Therefore, when it was used on the other side, it would also stop here. After all, it was used by the sect master. Even if everyone felt helpless, they did not dare to say anything. Why did he suddenly use the time wheel? With the sect master's way of doing things, he should have issued an edict in advance. Who knows? It should be an urgent use. Many disciples whispered and talked about it. It seems that someone made the sect master break the usual routine. Don't you think so, junior sister Qianying? Wang Li raised his eyebrows and said to Qi Qianying not far away with a smile. Qi Qianying did not answer, but looked to the side behind her. Wang Li also looked in the direction of the other party's gaze, and her eyes could not help but light up. Senior brother Qiu, you're here too? How rare. It's been a long time since I last met you in the Reverie Galaxy, Wang Li said as she walked towards him. Qiu Xingyi smiled and nodded. Hello. The others nearby also looked at the three of them with some surprise. It had been a long time since they last came to the astral dream realm to cultivate. Wang Li and Qi Qianying could still be seen occasionally, but Qiu Xingyi had not appeared for almost a year or two. The fact that all three of them were here at the same time was quite surprising. Has Senior Qiu just arrived? Wang Li asked. I didn't expect the astral dream realm to be suspended. It's about the same for us. The sect leader didn't give any advance notice this time. It should be for someone. Wang Li answered her own question. Qiu Xingyi smiled, but didn't say anything. At the same time, he looked at the sky above the 9 heavens. He paused for a moment and murmured, "The holy war is imminent. It's to have more expectations." That's right. There's still more than a month before the holy battle enlistment begins. It's something to look forward to, but it's also something to be afraid of. I can finally meet those monsters on the Wind Cloud ranking list. Hanyan Clan, Profound Sun Palace, Xiao Pavilion, and the 5 young Saint Kings of War God Palace. They won't be absent, right? Wang Li's expression was somewhat touched. If the sect war that had just ended a few days ago was just an appetizer, then the upcoming Holy War Call would be a grand feast. There was no comparison between the two. Even Qiu Xingyi attached great importance to it. It was anticipation. It was fear. All the top sects would gather. Who would be the Saint Dragon? Who would be the Serpent? Oracle Palace. It was as if they had passed through countless years of people and stepped into the past and present. A blurry image began to appear. Yin it's a boy. Our Hung is born. The gentle voice was filled with excitement. It was a joy that came from the bottom of the heart. Quick, let me see. A weak female voice was heard. He's so cute. He hasn't even opened his eyes. The image changed. The blurry scene gradually became clear. The sun was shining brightly and the wind was gentle. The pavilion was waterside and the corridor was picturesque. A handsome man with a slender figure and a jade-like face looked lovingly at a young woman who was carrying a baby in her arms. The man had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, and a sharp nose. He had an innate heroic aura. The woman was beautiful, and her eyes were like autumn water. She was a beauty that could topple nations. The baby in the swaddle opened his big clear eyes and looked at the new world curiously. That's great. The man smiled gently. I'm satisfied with the two of you. The woman smiled faintly. She was also very happy. Brother Tian, it'll be Hung Er's 1-month birthday in 3 days. I want to bring him back to the clan for Big Brother to see. His uncle keeps saying that he wants to see his nephew. You also know that the Demon Eye clan has a lot of things to deal with recently. I think he can't leave, so... I know. The man gently put his arm around the other's shoulders and pulled both mother and son into his embrace. The Demon Eye clan has many matters to attend to. Now that you're married to me, all the matters in the clan will be handled by Big Brother alone. We should indeed bring Hung back to let him take a look. Tomorrow morning, we'll set off and stay for a few more days. Yes. The woman was overjoyed. She used her fingertip to touch the baby's cheek. Hung be good. You'll be able to see your uncle soon. Are you happy? Silly. Hung is not even a month old. How can he understand what you're saying? Wah! The baby in her arms opened his small mouth and made a vague sound as if he was responding. Brother Tian, Hung understands. Ha ha. The scene changed again. This time, there was no warm scene. The cold wind howled, and the sky was filled with frost. Majestic buildings collapsed with a loud bang. Flames and smoke filled the air, and blood flowed like a river. Corpses lay in pools of blood with their eyes wide open. The cold wind danced like frost blades. The sky darkened, and the earth was filled with murderous intent. A handsome young man, like a fiend god, was surrounded by a dense black light. He stood on a vast platform with a disdainful attitude. Beneath his feet, there were countless corpses, and blood flowed like a fountain. He stood at the top of all the corpses like an unparalleled heaven's chosen overlord. Behind the man, his beautiful wife sat on the ground powerlessly. Her eyes were filled with infinite sorrow as she looked at the baby licking his lips and waving his little hands. Scarlet blood slowly blossomed on her white dress, and it was as bright as a blood lotus. Everything happened too suddenly. The woman slowly raised her head and looked at her husband's loving gaze. The man knelt on one knee and hugged the two of them gently. "I'm sorry, I couldn't protect you and your son." The woman pursed her lips and smiled bitterly. In the distance, the flames of war continued to spread and chaos erupted. Waves of destructive power swept out in all directions like a nebula whirlpool. Shrill screams rang out continuously. The woman and the man looked at each other, and the latter nodded gently. Then, the woman looked at the young man below the Tao platform, who was clad in armor and covered in blood. "Wu Shang, yes, you're my big brother's most trusted right-hand man. I'll hand him over to you now. Please raise him well." The woman's voice became weaker and weaker, and blood continued to flow from her mouth. The eyes of the young man in armor glowed with blood. He gritted his teeth and knelt on the ground. "Lady Ji Xia, I'm willing to risk my life to protect you." The woman shook her head with a bitter smile. She said, "Their target is me and Brother Tian. No matter where we escape, they'll find us. Now, I can only send him away." As she spoke, she slowly stood up with the help of her husband. She carried the child and walked in front of the young man in armor. It was as if every step she took was like a knife stabbing into her heart. "Don't tell Hen what happened today. Let him be an ordinary person. Please take good care of him. I, Li Jixia, can't repay you." Sparkling and translucent tears silently flowed down her cheeks, and her severe injuries caused every single word she spoke to be extremely strenuous. "Yes," the young man in armor said in a choked and heavy voice. "This subordinate understands. Grow up well. Hen if I knew that our family would be separated so suddenly, I would have sewed a few more new clothes for you and made a few more pairs of new shoes for you. From the age of 1, 2, until you grow up, you can wear the clothes I sewed for you. I'm really sorry. I can't watch you grow up. I can't watch you get married and have children. You have to remember, when you learn to walk, you have to be slow and don't fall." The woman was already sobbing. However, the baby in the swaddling clothes seemed to have sensed something. He suddenly cried loudly and waved his small hands randomly in the air. "Do you think I'm too naggy? I'm sorry. Let father say a few words to you." The woman then turned the baby to the young man beside her. The latter's eyes were full of love. "Naggy mother has already said what she wants to say. I don't know what to say anymore. Since mother wants you to be an ordinary person." At this moment, a demonic purple light flashed faintly in the baby's eyes. At the same time, a strange black light pattern surged between the baby's eyebrows. In an instant, a familiar wave of power surged out of the baby's body. The man raised his eyebrows, but his face showed a wild and unruly carefree laughter. "Ha ha! Hin, if you don't like being an ordinary person, then don't listen to your mother. How can my son, Chu Rantian, be mediocre in this world? How can my son, Chu Rantian, be mediocre in this world?" The wild and overbearing voice went straight to the 9 heavens. At the same time, dozens of powerful figures with cold auras appeared in the air like ghosts. They were like ripples on the surface of the water. Each of them exuded endless powerful killing intent. Chu Rantian, Li Jixia. Today is the day your two clans perish. Li Jixia's expression changed. Brother Tian? Umph. Chu Rantian's cold gaze froze. He raised his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. An incomparably majestic and terrifying power surged out of him. Bang! An incomparably loud and heavy sound rang out. The air actually shattered, and a spatial tunnel suddenly appeared beneath the heavens. Then, Chu Rantian took the baby from Li Jixia's hands and brought it to the young man in battle armor. Wushang, I'm counting on you. The man hurriedly picked up the crying baby with both hands. Lord Rantian, Lord Jixia, you must take care. Then, without another word, he leaped as fast as he could, transforming into a streak of light and darting into the spatial tunnel. Where do you think you're going? The black-clothed men wanted to intercept and attack. However, in the next moment, a black figure with a monstrous aura, like a demon god, angrily tore through the heavens and shattered the void. Chapter 1260. Chu Lantian is here. Those who offend my wife and children will die. The wild and overbearing voice was like the melodious sound of a bell echoing through the endless mountain peaks. It passed through the mountains and rivers, crossed over the mountains and ridges, and passed through the rushing crowds of people. Finally, it disappeared into the long river of time. Kill. Charge. Loyal and courageous, brave and courageous. The Long family's army is invincible. 10,000 arrows shot out at the same time, killing intent like numbness. Soon after, the two armies clashed. The two armored armies were like two tides that met head-on, directly charging towards each other. The cold spear flickered, the sword light flashed. The impassioned sound of the war drums was as rapid as the rain, and the loud and clear sound of the bugle horn was as deep as the tide. The long spear was dyed in blood, and the horse continued to wrap itself in corpses. This battle lasted from morning to evening. Countless soldiers' hands were numb, their throats were hoarse, and even the blades in their hands were so blunt that it was difficult to cut a piece of paper. After the intense and chaotic battle, the exhausted soldiers began to search for their living companions in the pile of corpses. The wild wind was like a roaring ghost, blowing on one's body so cold that it made one shiver. General, your wound is still bleeding. You need to hurry and bandage it. A small soldier walked in front of General. The general was over 50 years old, and his beard and hair were mixed with some white hair. Compared to the other soldiers, he was already an old general. Even so, the other party was still valiant and heroic, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about me. Save the injured brothers first. But General, to think that I, Longbow, have fought for so many years, this little injury is nothing. By the time you finish bandaging me, my wound will have already scabbed." The small soldier had no choice but to save the others first. "General, I feel that something is a little strange," another deputy general said doubtfully. "Oh." The old man didn't understand. "General, the enemy's troops are 3 times more than ours. Furthermore, our reinforcements have yet to arrive. Logically speaking, we went a little too easily this time." When these words came out, Longbow's eyes couldn't help but surge with some bewilderment. The corner of his eyes narrowed as he swept his gaze across the surrounding soldiers. He was even more astonished. This time, the enemy he was facing was known as the most ferocious Tiger Thorn Legion. Every single one of the enemy's soldiers were cruel, and it was said that this Tiger Thorn Legion had gathered many fugitives and bandits from various dynasties. Not only were they ferocious by nature, but they were also very strong. This time, Logan had been ordered to come and fight. It could be said that he was determined to die on the battlefield. What was surprising was that the enemy outnumbered them by 2 to 3 times, and they had yet to receive any reinforcements. Not only did they survive, but they even won the battle. This was truly unexpected. General. At this moment, a strange voice came from somewhere else. "What is it?" Logan replied. "Yes, there's a child, children." Everyone was startled. Logan's attention was also diverted, and he hurriedly led a few deputy generals to welcome them. It looks like it was born not long ago. How strange. Why is there a child here? Could it be left behind by a passing refugee? The soldiers asked in confusion. Logan sheathed his sword and removed his blood-stained armor. Then, he carefully took the infant from the soldier's hands. The child's mouth opened and closed. He was half asleep, half awake, and looked like a newborn kitten. He's still alive. Logan's eyes lit up, and he flipped the child's clothes to see if there were any other injuries. There seems to be a letter. The deputy general beside him said. Logan took out the letter from the child's arms and opened it. There were only a few lines of words on it. This child's surname is Chu, and his name is Hen. In this chaotic world, he is alone and has no one to rely on. I hope that someone fated will take him in and bestow him with a simple family. The two simple lines entered Logan's eyes. Looking at the young life in his arms, his sharp, eagle-like gaze became gentle. He sighed. Fine. I, Logan, have spent my entire life on the battlefield. Being able to pick you up on the battlefield today can be considered a kind of fate. From today onwards, you are a member of my long family. The yellow sand-filled battlefield quietly faded away. The warm sunlight shone on a wide courtyard. Patriarch, the general has returned. Following the excited shout of the housekeeper at the door, a man with a dignified appearance and extraordinary martial prowess hurriedly walked out of the hall. Father, you're back. Grandfather is back. Grandfather, give me a hug. Behind the man were two children whose voices could not be heard clearly. The two children were about 2 years old, and they were wobbling as they walked. They were extremely cute and beautiful. Shuang, younger when I wasn't around. Were you good? Good. The boy happily shouted. The girl seemed to be a little introverted. Although she was happy, she was less lively and more quiet. Father, you're finally back. I heard that your opponent was the Tiger Thorn Army. Are you injured? The man hurriedly asked. What is the Tiger Thorn Army? I'm fine. You don't have to worry. Father, let me take your place on the battlefield in the future. What nonsense are you talking about? You're my only son, and the mother of these two children passed away early. If you die on the battlefield, who will take care of these two children? Longbow glared at him and scolded. The man was speechless. Just as he was about to say something, he saw that Longbow was carrying a bundle. Father, what are you carrying? Longbow's eyes lit up, and a benevolent look appeared on his face. I found a baby on the battlefield. From now on, he's your adopted son. Adopted son? The man was a little shocked. He stretched his head out to take a look, and when he saw the adorable baby in the swaddling clothes, he could not help but smile warmly. He's really a child. Of course, why would I lie to you? With that, Longbow knelt on one knee and showed the baby to the other two children. Shuang, from today onwards, he's your little brother. Wow, I have a little brother? The child who was called was very curious and said innocently, Hello, little brother. I'm Long Qingyang, what's your name? He's called Chu Hen. Longbow replied. Chu Hen? Why don't you have the same surname as me and my sister? Long Ting paused for a moment and said, That's because I hope that one day his biological parents will be able to find him. But before that, you have to protect him, understand? Yes, I'll protect him. The boy patted his chest like a little man, and his innocent and cute appearance caused the people around him to laugh out loud. The little girl at the side also walked over curiously. She seemed to be very careful, as if she wanted to touch the baby's hand. But before he could touch her, the baby suddenly burst into loud wails. The little girl was so frightened that she immediately withdrew her hand and looked at Long Tongue innocently. He doesn't seem to like me. Long Tongue passed the child to a servant behind him and then rubbed the little girl's head. He's just hungry. From now on, you're his big sister, so you have to look after him and don't let him get hurt. I don't want to. The little girl pouted and was a little unhappy. It was as if she had already decided that the little guy just now did not like her, and that was why he was crying. So, she did not want to be his big sister. However, in the future, it seemed that there would always be a petite figure who was not very talkative, hiding not far away, secretly watching the child grow up. When he was learning to walk unsteadily, she would be nervous. When he was careless and fell on the ground, she would call the adults over in time. When he used a muffled voice to call her big sister, she would turn her head in disdain and say, "Don't call me that. I'm not your big sister." However, after running away, there was a smile on her face. When he was 4 or 5 years old, he could walk steadily, and when he was jogging, he often followed behind her play. She also warned him, "Don't follow me." Feeling wronged, he ran home to look for his brother, but behind him, the introverted little girl kept following him for fear that he would accidentally fall and get hurt. Just like the childhood of an ordinary family. Just like the growth of an ordinary family. Simple, ordinary. The memory fragments were like 100 rivers that continuously converged into the sea, piecing together and presenting themselves in Chu Hen's mind. Some things, like the marks of the wheels, were deep, shallow, and deeply imprinted in his heart. After an unknown period of time, Chu Hen walked out of the entrance of the Tianji Palace. He stood on the steps, the sun was just right, and the wind was beautiful. The cool breeze blew against his face, and on his face, 2 lines of dried tears could be seen. Only he knew how uneasy and restless his heart was. After releasing his emotions, he gradually calmed down. Chu Rantian, Li Jixia, these were the names of his parents. Chu Hen laughed. He unknowingly laughed a little happily. As he laughed, it was dry and sorrowful. For a long time, Chu Hen squatted at the entrance of the Tianji Palace like a wooden man. After a long time, he slowly stood up, and his eyes were no longer so gloomy. He walked out of the city wall and walked across the iron chain bridge. Returning to the previous peak, a middle-aged figure with his hands behind his back stood alone on the top of a steep broken wall. "Found what you want?" Dongfang Hengji turned sideways and looked at him quietly with gentle eyes. Chu Hen nodded and then shook his head. "The memory I saw is not complete." Although Chu Hen already knew that his parents' names were Chu Rantian and Li Jixia, and that they were forced to leave him, the most important thing was still unknown. For example, what happened to the Demon Eye clan? Who were the enemies of his parents? Why did they want to deal with them? These most crucial factors were still a blur. Dongfang Hengji nodded and immediately explained, when a person is born, his memory is very messy and fragmented. However, things that have been seen by the eyes and heard by the ears will be left in the mind as a shallow mark. These things will not be remembered at all after growing up. This part is called sleeping memory. He paused for a moment before continuing. Moreover, the time can reproduce the scenes and sounds that you saw with your eyes and ears when you were young. In other words, what you see in the time can only be the scenes that you witnessed. As for things that you haven't experienced, or if you're asleep, you won't have any memories. Only the memory that was seen or heard by the eyes would be awakened by the time wheel. For a newborn baby, most of the time was in a state of sleep. Therefore, the memory that Chu Hen saw was fragmented and incomplete. It seemed that only that person knew everything. Chapter 1261. On the edge of the steep cliff, the surrounding peaks were like giant blades piercing the sky. Chu Hen gazed at the vast sky in front of him. There were many thoughts in his heart, and he was deeply moved. There were still too many mysteries about him. In this world, apart from Li Wushang, no one could explain what happened in the Demon Eye clan that year. Where was the other party? When would he show up? No one knew. Swish! At this moment, a figure with a calm aura flew from the direction of Tianwu Peak. The person was none other than Beichun Peak Master Yuanshang. He landed behind the martial sect master, Dongfang Hengji. He first looked at Chu Hen, who was not far away, with some surprise, and then said with a little respect, "Sect Master, Reverberating Stars Realm has resumed its normal operation." Dongfang Hengji nodded. He immediately looked at Chu Hen. "I have lent you the time wheel. Next you need to do something for me." Chu Hen was startled, retracted his inner thoughts, and looked at the other party with some confusion. "What is it?" "Holy War Conscription." Dongfang Hengji spat out these words calmly and clearly. Chu Hen's pupils shrank slightly. To be honest, he had been thinking about this matter these days. Now he didn't expect the sect master to mention it openly to him. Receiving the solemn determination in Dongfang Hengji's eyes, Chu Hen breathed a sigh of relief, nodded slightly, and said, "Okay, I promise you." Chu Hen's purpose of entering martial ancestor was only for the time wheel. In other words, to a certain extent, he did not regard himself as a real martial ancestor disciple. After achieving his goal, he would most likely leave. Therefore, Dongfang Hengji used borrowing the time wheel as an exchange to let Chu Hen go to the Holy War conscription as a martial ancestor disciple. Almost without any hesitation, he agreed. After all, Chu Hen never liked to owe others. Buzz. Dongfang Hengji raised his hand, and a book with purple gold edges flashed in his hand. North Star Peak, Lord Yuan Shang's expression changed slightly. On the cover of the book were the words, "Primordial Chaos Art. This is your reward for becoming the champion of the sect battle." After that, Dongfang Hengji raised his palm, and the book floated in front of Chu Hen like a feather. Chu Hen was even more surprised. However, he was still a little bewildered. "Just lend me the time wheel to use. The time wheel is a bargaining chip, and that's a different thing altogether." Dongfang Hengji spoke in a calm tone, but when it reached the ears, it gave off a strange power that was hard to refuse. Chu Hen didn't say anything and took the book with both hands. "Many thanks for the reward, Sect Master. This is what you deserve. Besides that, the recruitment for the Holy War will begin 45 days from now, but you have to leave for the 10,000 Bell City half a month in advance. In other words, you have a month to prepare." Chu Hen nodded in agreement. "I know, I will do my best. Go." "Yes." Chu Hen cupped his fists and bowed to Dongfang Hengji and Yuan Shang. "This disciple will take his leave first." Immediately, Chu Hen took the lead and left the place. As soon as Chu Hen left, North Star Peak Lord Yuan Shang couldn't hold it in anymore and said in astonishment, "That primordial chaos art can only be practiced by the sect master of each generation. What are you doing?" Dongfang Hengji raised his eyes slightly and replied calmly, "The Holy War is imminent. Teaching him the primordial chaos art is also a guarantee for the martial sect disciples." Yuan Shang still shook his head. This primordial chaos art was the strongest martial art of the martial sect above the 4 supreme martial arts. In the entire sect, except for the sect master, no one could pry into its secrets. He didn't expect Dongfang Hengji to pass it to a newcomer who had just entered the sect for less than 2 years. Even if the other party was a disciple of his North Star Peak Academy, Yuan Shang couldn't help but feel a little abrupt. How much did the other party expect from Chu Hen? "Is he really worth it?" Yuan Shang asked. "I think this holy war will bring unexpected surprises." Dongfang Hengji's eyes were surging with expectations. Immediately, Yuan Shang didn't say anything more. Dongfang Hengji's thoughts had never been something they could figure out. Perhaps, as he said, the sect war was just the beginning, and there would be more surprises in the future. Returning to Sky Observation Peak alone, Chu Hen's heart was still tangled and gloomy like a cobweb. "What did you see in the time wheel?" At this moment, a voice came from his body. "My parents," Chu Hen replied. "Where are they now?" "I don't know." Chu Hen shook his head. He didn't know their whereabouts, and even whether they were alive or dead. He then asked, "How much do you know about the Demon Eye clan? One of the 10 strongest sacred bodies. I used to often hear about how powerful this sacred clan is. Later, I was sealed for hundreds of years, and I know nothing about the outside world," Mo Qingli said. Chu Hen nodded. He was only born 20 years ago, and Mo Qingli had been sealed in the 100 Kingdom States 10,000 Beast Ridge for hundreds of years. How could she know what happened during this period? "How did you end up there?" Chu Hen asked. "It's a long story, and I don't want to talk about it now." Mo Qingli's tone was a little lonely. Obviously, she had not been living well in the past hundreds of years. Chu Hen didn't continue to ask. He immediately calmed down and walked to the cultivation platform and sat down cross-legged. Due to the sneak attack by Xiao Meng that night, nearly half of the huge cave mansion had collapsed. Even the wall engraved with the North Star art and mysterious runes had countless cracks. However, this place was still livable, and it didn't affect much. Chu Hen let out a deep breath and quickly adjusted his condition. Then his eyes turned cold, and a ball of black light surged in his eyes. Black flames rose around his body, and together with a powerful and restless aura, a black shadow immediately appeared in front of Chu Hen. Chu Hen sat opposite the black shadow. From the side, their silhouettes were almost identical. If I'm not wrong, my bloodline boundary should be inherited from my father, Chu Hen thought to himself. In the time wheel, he only knew that his mother, Li Jixia, was a member of the Demon Eye clan. He didn't know much about his father, Chu Qintian. The boundary between the two bloodlines in his body would be the biggest clue. Then, with a thought from Chu Hen, the black shadow in front of him suddenly brewed an extremely powerful aura. Buzz buzz. Along with the trembling black flames, the space in front of the black shadow began to distort rapidly. Rays of black light spun rapidly, like a strange whirlpool. Kacha. With a crisp sound, a crack suddenly appeared in the center of the vortex. The crack slowly expanded outwards at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then turned into a bowl-sized spatial devouring hole. It was so powerful that even space couldn't withstand it. It was definitely a horrifying power. This was a scene he had witnessed before he left the Eastern continent. It was just after the battle at the Thunder Saint Palace, and Chu Hen was researching the power of the chaotic body at Mount Kunliu. However, with Chu Hen's ability, he could only make a small crack in space. Endless true origin energy was continuously released, and the bowl-sized spatial hole expanded to the size of a disk. Through the crack in space, one could clearly see the space-time turbulence shuttling back and forth inside. These spatial turbulence contained extremely terrifying destructive power. They looked like tens of thousands of rapidly flashing meteors. Ordinary people would be instantly crushed the moment they came into contact with them. Even the power of the six-star demon, I could not tear through space, but his chaotic body did it. It was simply unimaginable. Suddenly, Chu Hen condensed his palm and sucked up a nearby rock, throwing it into the spatial crack. Chapter 1262. Bang! With an extremely heavy and violent explosion, chaotic energy ripples surged out. In an instant, the entire rock was blown to smithereens in front of Chu Hen. What astonishing power! Chu Hen's complexion faintly changed, and his eyes revealed astonishment. It really is spatial turbulence. What kind of power is this? Even Mo Qingli, the sacred winged heavenly flame bird, could not help but ask. Buzz, buzz. Without waiting for Chu Hen's reply, the space that had split open became restless. Following that, the light pattern cyclone that lingered in the surroundings rapidly calmed down, and the shattered space immediately healed together again. I thought it was just some kind of secret technique that could devour energy. I didn't think it would really be a spatial hole. Mo Qingli expressed her disbelief once again. Chu Hen nodded. Yes, I didn't quite believe it when I first saw it. Looking at the black figure sitting opposite him, Chu Hen's eyes flickered with a profound light. Compared to back in the Eastern Victory Plain, he could now control this powerful and mysterious power for a longer period of time. It's rare to see a bloodline that can create a spatial hole. It's a pity that the range is too small, or it would catch countless opponents off guard. Mo Qingli replied. Chu Hen could not deny this. The spatial turbulence within the spatial hole contained extremely terrifying destructive power. Not to mention that ordinary people would die upon contact with it. Even ancient Eternity Realm experts would avoid it. If he used it in battle, it would definitely be a terrifying killing move that would make all enemies tremble in fear. But just as the other person had said, the spatial hole's range was still too small. No one would be stupid enough to barge into it themselves. He still needed to spend more time researching how to increase the power of the chaotic body. Buzz? The air trembled faintly, and the black figure in front of Chu Hen turned into a whirlwind and disappeared. Pausing for a moment, Chu Hen raised his hand and flipped it over. A book with purple and gold decorative designs appeared in his palm. Chaos Origin Technique. Looking at the words on the cover, Chu Hen murmured. Then, he slowly opened the book. Hua! In an instant, a dazzling light shone from the pages of the book. Chu Hen's eyes and face were reflected in a golden color. Under Chu Hen's astonished gaze, the words on the page floated out one by one and floated in the air, forming a shining light screen of words. The great Tao of primordial chaos confused the powers of the world into one, absorbed the spirits of heaven and earth, gathered the power of rivers and mountains, and returned them all to the origin. Looking at the introduction, Chu Hen's heart faintly trembled. He muttered in a low voice, "This primeval chaos technique is actually a martial technique that has fused a myriad of energies into mastery. I'm afraid even the North Star technique is slightly inferior to it in terms of profundity. This martial art is quite suitable for you," Mo Qingli said. "Yes, I think so too." Chu Hen nodded in agreement. After all, he had the power of many attributes, such as the power of the demon eye, the power of the Xiansha divine thunder, the power of the seven stars, the power of Sun Luo, and so on. In the process of fighting with the enemy, he could only use 2 or 3 of them. If the primeval chaos technique could fuse many types of energies together, then the power of all aspects would be greatly improved, and there would be no excess. Thinking of this, Chu Hen could not help but feel grateful to Dongfang Hongji. Immediately, he calmed down and began to carefully read the contents of the book. Time flew by. In the following period of time, the pace of life of many disciples in the martial sect was relatively fast. The dream of the stars was almost full every day. The top geniuses on the Sky Martial list, who were rarely seen, also appeared on the Sky Martial Peak every 2 or 3 days. The Holy War. For countless people, it was something that could only be encountered by chance. Sometimes once in 1,000 years. Sometimes once in 100 years. This was a competition, but also an opportunity. Was it a dragon or a python? Look at the gathering of wind and clouds. Finally, after a month of tension, the martial sect, and even the entire Midland, ushered in the most turbulent moment. On this day, the selected 3,000 martial sect disciples were ready to go and gathered at the Ling Shao Square on the Sky Martial Peak. In the morning, the loud sound of a horn echoed between heaven and earth like a distant war drum. On a watchtower on the north side of the Sky Martial Peak, Dongfang Hongji, the sect master, put his hands behind his back and looked at the disciples below like a king. Beside him were the 8 peak courtyard masters, Cloud Manor, Ning Qiushui, Yuan Shang, and the former West Dome peak master Situ Song, who had been removed. Although Situ Song had been removed from the position of peak master, he had made a lot of contributions to the sect after all. At such an important moment, he was still qualified to stand here. Below the watchtower, the eyes of the martial sect disciples were resolute, and they were ready to draw their swords. Qiu Xingyi, Chu Hen, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yin, and a few others stood in front of the team like leading sheep, each emitting the aura of a general. Suddenly, at this moment, there was a slight commotion at the back of the crowd. "It's senior brother Pei Yi. Oh my God, he's here too. I haven't seen him for a month." Everyone's heart was startled. Chu Hen, Qiu Xingyi, and the others also subconsciously looked over. A young figure exuding a cold aura was slowly walking towards them. Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yin, and the others were stunned. "His legs are actually reattached?" A surprised voice came from the crowd, not far behind. "Yes, I've known about it since yesterday." It said that peak leader Situ, Elder Situ, begged the sect leader to spend a large amount of rare treasures and precious medicinal herbs to reattach his broken leg. The sect master is really resourceful. While everyone was amazed, they also secretly admired Dongfang Hongji's means. However, it could be seen that although Pei Ye's legs were reattached, his movements were still a little slow and not as agile as before. Moreover, his temperament was different from before. His cold eyes did not have the usual spirit, giving people a slightly decadent feeling. It had to be said that it was really sad that the former third on the Sky Martial list, the chief disciple of West Dome Peak, had now fallen to such a state. On second thought, it was also his own fault, and he could not blame others. "Everyone is here," Dongfang Heng Ji looked at the 3,000 martial ancestor disciples below calmly. From today on, all of you are the representatives of my martial ancestor. Before we set off, if anyone wants to withdraw, you can stand up. No one answered. Dongfang Heng Ji looked at Yuan Shan behind him. The latter understood and waved to several disciples on the other side of the stage. Immediately, everyone carried a tray and walked towards the 3,000 disciples in the center of the square. On the tray, there were glasses of mellow wine. Soon, everyone held a glass of wine in their hands. Dongfang Heng Ji, the peak courtyard master, and many high-level elders also held their wine glasses in their hands. Everyone, the holy war is coming. I wish you all a golden dragon and suppress the serpent. We will wait here for you to return triumphantly. Return triumphantly. Everyone responded in unison. They were united. After that, they all drank the wine in their cups. As the warm wine entered their stomachs, after a burning sensation in their throats, everyone only felt a warmth in their abdomen, as if the blood in their body was boiling. Qiu Xingyi, Dongfang Heng Ji called out. Disciple is here. For this holy war, I specially order you to be the leader of the team. This is the recruitment order. Bring it to the 10,000 Bells City. Dongfang Heng Ji gently raised his palm, and a notebook overflowing with golden light patterns floated down and floated in front of Qiu Xingyi. Qiu Xingyi solemnly took it into his hand. Disciple is here. Chu Hen, Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qi Qianying. Dongfang Heng Ji continued to call out. Disciple is here. I order you to be the deputy leader. You must assist Qiu Xingyi to lead our disciples to the holy war. Yes, disciple is here. After some strict instructions, the wind and clouds suddenly rose above martial ancestor. Along with the rolling wind and thunder, a dazzling large talisman formation appeared under the sky. Buzz! The talisman formation shone brilliantly, and a light illuminated the sky. Then, a huge golden boat slowly glided out of the talisman formation. The giant boat was more than 1,000 feet long and 100 feet high. The boat body was painted with many mysterious and complex talisman inscriptions. The black shadow covered the sky, and it looked like a terrible prehistoric giant beast. Everyone looked up, and their eyes were filled with a strong light and shock. Dongfang Heng Ji waved his hand. Everyone, let's return in triumph. The holy war summons. Set off. Set off. The vigorous and impassioned sound of the horn resounded throughout the entire martial ancestor. In an instant, a fierce figure directly rose into the air and quickly boarded the magnificent huge boat. Screech! A few majestic large eagles circled the front and back of the giant boat, setting off a mighty momentum of wind and clouds as it sailed away from the sky above Sky Marshall Peak. The remaining martial ancestor disciples all looked up at the sky with a look of amazement. What an enviable group of people. Let's also work hard. Even if we can't participate in the holy war, we can't fall behind forever. Haha, that's true. I hope they can win glory for our martial ancestor. Looking at the huge golden boat gradually disappearing in the sky, the sect master and the peak courtyard master on the high platform were silent, and their expressions were deep. After every holy war, the situation between the major sects and forces would undergo a huge change. Since ancient times, many amazing and outstanding evildoers had appeared, but at the same time, countless clans and sects had also fallen. For martial ancestor, this time, was it the rise of the sacred dragon, or was it the coiling of the snake and python? Everything was unknown. The battle between the dragon and python, the gathering of the wind and clouds. The holy war summons came. Chapter 1263. The sky was blue and the skies were clear. A huge golden ship was shuttling through the vast void like a prehistoric beast. It was majestic and incomparably mighty. On both sides of the ark, there were giant eagles with wingspans of 100 meters protecting it. It was such a majestic scene, but it looked like it was flying in the wind for thousands of miles. There were 3,000 martial sect disciples gathered on the ark. Some of the disciples were sitting, some were standing, and some were standing at the edge of the ark, looking at the beautiful scenery of the mountains and rivers. There was no roof on the ark, and it was almost completely open, allowing the howling wind to blow against it. I'm so excited that I almost jumped into the sky. I didn't expect that I, Wu Mian, would be able to participate in such a grand event in my lifetime. Since a month ago, Wu Mian and the rest of the martial sect disciples were especially excited. Now, it had reached an uncontrollable level. Tisk, for figures walked in front of Wu Mian. What are you thinking about? Second brother Wu, with your standard, I'm really worried that you won't survive more than 2 days on the battlefield. Wu Mian glanced at him disdainfully from the corner of his eyes. Ding Xiaoyan, how dare the four of you mock me? I really suspect that the four of you sneaked up here. With your standard, how could you be chosen here? What are you talking about? Do you know how to speak human language? How are the four of us trash? Ding Xiaoyan and the other three immediately protested. Wu Mian squinted his eyes, then pointed at the four of them and said, You're not convinced that you're trash? You, Ding Xiaoyan, you're not even in the second stage, yet you have the cheek to be the leader. Of all the names, why did you have to call yourself the Proud Sky Team? How arrogant. And you, Wild Monkey, you have a sharp mouth and cheeks, and you're as skinny as a wooden stick. Have you ever been hungry since you were young? What are you staring at? Big Blockhead, your name fits your image perfectly. Iron Gate. But why is your surname, Ouyang? What a waste of such a domineering surname. And that. Hee Sister Xiaoyan, I heard that you're still single. Do you want to consider me? Gangster. The four of them cursed and immediately turned to leave. TSK. Wu Mian rolled his eyes. A bunch of ignorant fools. You dare to fight with me? Do you think I'm the old second Wu from before? Ever since the sect war, Wu Mian, who had always been looked down upon, was much more confident than before. His eyes were bright, and when he argued with Ding Xiaoman and the other three, it was much easier. That guy really has a talent for making jokes. Not far away, Zhao Qingyi, who was sitting with Chu Hen and the rest, shook her head and smiled. You really know how to talk. I'm about to die from laughter. I wonder if that blockhead is really called Ouyang Taiman, huh? Zhao Qingkai clutched his stomach as he laughed hysterically. Where's that wild monkey? Don't tell me he's called Shangwan Yao? Yi Yao couldn't help but reply, causing the surrounding people to burst into laughter. Even Chu Hen and Long Xuanchuang couldn't help but smile and shake their heads. Guys, is there anything fun to do? Can I join? A gentle voice sounded from behind, and then a handsome face with a smile appeared between Zhao Qingyi and Wu Yin, senior brother Wang Li. The few of them were startled. Wang Li's brows raised. I've walked around, and it seems like your place is rather relaxed. I won't disturb you guys, right? Of course not. Senior brother Wang Li, sit here. Wu Yin and Zhao Qingyi moved to the side to give him a seat. Wang Li didn't stand on ceremony and sat down with everyone in a natural manner. He then looked at Chu Hen and said, I really envy junior brother Chu Hen for having such a group of friends by your side. Chu Hen lightly smiled. I'm very happy as well. These people by my side. After he finished speaking, he glanced at everyone in succession, and his gaze descended onto Yi Yao and Long Xuanchuang, and a faint gentleness surged in his eyes. That's a yin-yang beast, right? Wang Li noticed the black and white kitten in Yi Yao's embrace. And Yi Yao nodded, gently stroked his head, and said, Noni, say hello to senior brother Wang Li, meow. Noni lazily lifted his eyelids and responded in a perfunctory manner. Wang Li was rather happy. Ha, what a sunder a little fellow. On the huge ark, some people form groups, while some prefer to be alone. Because of the sect war, Beichen Peak Academy, which had always been looked down upon, had risen, and the disciples of other peak academies also changed their previous attitudes towards them. On the contrary, West Sky Peak Academy was in a slightly depressed state. Geniuses like Yang Ao, Shao Alliance, and other geniuses all had cold expressions as they sat silently at the side. As for the chief disciple, Pei Yi, from the moment he boarded the giant ark, he sat motionlessly in one place with his eyes closed, and his aura was so cold that no one dared to get too close. Feels like it'll be a little difficult. At the forefront of the giant arc, Qiuxingyi looked at the situation in front of him with a somewhat deep gaze. Qi Qining stood not far from him, her beautiful eyes slightly raised, and she naturally understood what he was talking about. However, she did not seem to be too interested in it. Instead, she asked, "Where is the specific location of the Holy War?" And Qiuxingyi was startled for a moment. A trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes, and then he replied, "Chaos Devil Domain Ruins." Chaos Devil Domain? Hearing these 4 words, Qi Qianing's pupils shrank slightly, and her expression quietly changed. The place where the Holy War took place 10,000 years ago. Yes, Qiuxingyi nodded cautiously. Even Qi Qianing could not help but inwardly suck in a breath of cold air. As everyone knew, this world was much more chaotic than it was now tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, there were endless wars between the major races and ancient forces. There were even many doomsday wars that took place that affected the entire era. Among them, the one that took place in the Chaos Devil Domain was also an earth-shattering and world-shattering war. According to rumor, at that time, many saints from the human clans and countless clans joined in the war. There were also many earth-shattering powerhouses from the demon clans and devil clans. That war was earth-shattering and earth-shattering. Almost the entire Chaos Devil Domain was turned upside down. Many saints died, and the almighty powerhouses from the demon clans perished. That war was a bloodbath, and hundreds of millions of corpses were lying on the ground. Until now, some information about that war could still be found in some ancient books. According to the ancient books, the most popular description of the war of the Chaos Devil Domain was, "During the war of the Chaos Devil Domain, hundreds of saints mourned, and tens of thousands of demons shed blood. If the devils did not retreat, the Midland would have fallen. It had been so many years." Although no one knew whether or not it was an exaggeration, the few words "the Midland is about to fall" were enough to send chills down the spines of countless people. Many people could not help but sigh when they heard the location of the Holy War was in the Chaos Devil Domain ruins. "It's indeed quite difficult," Qi Qining muttered in a low voice. It was as though she could already see the intense battle between the powerhouses. After tens of thousands of years, the Chaos Devil Domain ruins that had been silent for countless years would once again be thrown into chaos. By the way, Senior Brother Wang Li, how many times has our martial sect participated in the Holy War? Yi Yao was the one who asked the question. After chatting for a while, Wang Li's easygoing personality quickly made him get along well with everyone. When Chu Hen asked about the Holy War, he could not help but look at Wang Li. Wang Li exchanged glances with Wu Yan. Soon after, she smiled and replied with some hesitation. "If we include this time, it will be the second time." The second time? Everyone was surprised. However, they quickly understood that the martial sect's history was only a few thousand years old. Although it was quite a long time, it was relatively short compared to many first-rate sections. It was quite amazing that it had developed to this extent. It was reasonable that they did not participate in the Holy War before that. Yi Yao continued to ask, "How was the martial sect's result last time?" Hee, it's a little awkward now that you mention it." "What's wrong? Was it bad?" Yi Yao realized she might have said something wrong as soon as she finished speaking. However, Wang Li was not angry. "How should I put it? We didn't participate in the last Holy War. We only heard from the elders in the sect that our martial sect was in the best condition during the last Holy War. We had more than 10 top geniuses with prominent saint physiques, and even 3 monstrous geniuses with supreme saint physiques. Such a strong lineup," Zhao Qingkai exclaimed. Wu Yin nodded in affirmation. "It's indeed a strong lineup. In fact, it's much more impressive than ours this time. Since they're so strong, they should have achieved good results," Zhao Qingkai continued to say. Wu Yin laughed dryly and shook her head. A hint of gloom appeared in her eyes. However, the martial sect suffered a crushing defeat in that battle. Out of the 3 leading senior brothers, 1 died and 2 were injured. More than 2/3 of the thousands of martial sect disciples were injured, and those with saint physiques were all crippled of their cultivation. Crippled of their cultivation. The last few words caused everyone's pupils to constrict. Who's so ruthless? Zhao Qingyi's face turned pale as she asked in a deep voice. Wu Yin sighed deeply and spat out 3 words in a deep voice. Soaring Cloud Sect. Apart from Chu Hin, Yi Yao, and Long Xuan, everyone else was shocked when they heard the name. I've heard of this sect, Zhao Qingkai continued. Supposedly, the cloud-soaring sect's forces are extremely enormous, and they've always been subduing second- and third-rate sects to bring under their banner. In these thousands of years, they've developed swiftly, and they're even approaching a colossus like the Combat God Palace. They possess 3 top geniuses that are ranked on the top rankings. Chapter 1264. After listening to Wu Yin and Wang Li talk about the past of the martial sect, Chu Hin, Yi Yao, and the others could not help but sigh. They thought that the martial sect was getting stronger and stronger than before. Unexpectedly, compared to the last time when the Holy War was called up, it had actually regressed quite a bit. Needless to say, the methods of the Soaring Cloud sect were truly ruthless. The Holy War had almost led to the destruction of the entire martial sect. If it weren't for Dongfang Hengji's leadership to create such a divine object like the Star's Dream Realm, the current martial sect would not even be ranked as a third-rate force. While they marveled at Dongfang Heng's great talent, they no longer had the same expectations as before. Instead, it was replaced by an unprecedented sense of urgency and pressure. The powerful lineup of 3 Supreme Saint Physiques and more than a dozen Upper Saint Physiques with bloodline boundary were all defeated by the Lingyun sect in the last Holy War. What should they do this year? The Holy War conscription. The cruelty of it was far from comparable to the sect war that took place a month ago. If they were not careful this time, it would be a battlefield of life and death that could destroy an entire sect. Zhao Qingkai, Yi Yao, Wu Yin, and the others did not speak anymore. The relaxed and cheerful atmosphere just now had quietly become much more solemn. Only now did everyone understand how heavy the task of going to the conscription ground was and how heavy the burden on their shoulders was. It seems that I have hit your enthusiasm. Wang Li touched her nose and smiled slightly awkwardly. No. An indifferent and calm voice came out from Chu Hen's mouth. Everyone was stunned. They looked up and saw that Chu Hen's eyes were still as determined as the water in an ancient well. He said in a deep voice, "We will know these things sooner or later. Instead of being at a loss when we face difficulties, it is better to be mentally prepared now." Wang Li's eyes lit up, and she looked a little surprised. Wu Yin also nodded. That's right. Although there is some pressure, not everyone can encounter the Holy War conscription. If I don't participate, I will regret it for the rest of my life. The light of expectation in her heart was reignited. But compared to before, he was a little more cautious. Xiao. The huge golden ship shuttled between heaven and earth, sailing under the firmament. The speed of the golden boat was very fast. They traveled at a speed of several thousand kilometers per hour. Day and night passed by the mountains, rivers, seas, and various dynasties. After traveling for more than 10 days without rest, the group had long since left the martial sect. Screech, a loud and clear eagle cry pierced through the sky. Under the lingering clouds and mist, a vast city gradually appeared in front of everyone's eyes. We've arrived at Myriad Bell City. In an instant, everyone stood up and gazed towards the distant land. Qiu Xingyi, Pei Yi, Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Chu Hen, and the others opened their eyes one after another, and their eyes revealed a bright light. Wow, is that the 10,000 Bell City? Isn't a little too imposing? It's like a small country. Looking from afar, the internal and external structure of the 10,000 Bell City was rather peculiar. There's a huge main city in the middle, surrounded by several subsidiary cities. The imposing and majestic buildings in the city were arranged in neat rows, like stars surrounding the moon. Unconsciously, one's eyes lit up. It said that the 10,000 Bell City has a history of more than 10,000 years. Many of the buildings have retained the style of 10,000 years ago. The most distinctive feature is the ancient bells hanging on the city walls. It said that there are more than 19,000 ancient bells of various sizes, a knowledgeable martial sect disciple explained. Haha, looks like we could take a look around before the sacred war begins. Of course, I believe that the disciples of the other clans should be here by now. We can also gather information and the like. That's feasible. Roar. As they approached the east side of the 10,000 bell city, an earth-shattering roar of a ferocious beast resounded. Everyone was slightly startled. Then, they saw a dozen or so city guards wearing silver holy armor and holding long spears flying over on a huge tiger-eagle beast. We are the guards of the city lord's mansion. I am the captain, Zhou Gui. May I know where you are from? The person in the lead was tall and burly, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. Qiu Xingyi stepped onto the front of the giant boat and cupped his fists slightly as he said, I'm Qiu Xingyi, a disciple of the martial sect. The captain's eyes lit up as he said in surprise, So, it's Qiu Xingyi from the martial sect, the great genius Qiu. Please forgive us for our rudeness. You're too kind, sir. I wonder if genius Qiu has brought the enlistment order? The man continued to ask. Qiu Xingyi nodded his head. With a flip of his hand, he presented the golden book that Dongfang Heng had given him earlier to him. The man took the book into his hand through the air and carefully spread it open. He swept his gaze over it, then nodded and returned it to Qiu Xingyi. It's indeed the enlistment order. Everyone, please stop the flowing cloud golden boat at the boat platform below, Zhou Gui said as he pointed at a vast, large field below. There were many giant boats that were already docked at the field. The giant boats that were neatly arranged were as majestic as demon beasts lying on the ground. Under the guidance of Zhou Gui and the others, the giant golden boat slowly landed on the empty space on the boat platform below. The martial sect's disciples began to leave the golden boat that they had stayed in for more than 10 days. At the same time, Zhou Gui and the other guards also landed on the ground. The martial sect's disciples will be staying in the 93 mansions in the southeast. Please follow me, thank you. Qiu Xingyi replied politely. No problem. Under the guidance of Zhou Gui and the others, the 3,000 martial sect's disciples entered a secondary city in the southeast of the 10,000 bell city. The surrounding secondary cities were bustling with noise and excitement. Cheers could be heard from afar. It seems like some of the forces from the Shaozong sect have already arrived, Qiu Xingyi asked casually. Zhou Gui nodded his head. Indeed. Speaking of which, your martial sect is considered to have arrived rather late. As early as half a month ago, other sects arrived one after another. They've already arrived half a month ago. That's right. There are even a few sects that arrived today after the Holy War Order was announced. Everyone was secretly surprised. Although they were surprised, they also felt that it was reasonable. After all, to any sect or clan, the Holy War Order was the most important event in the Midland. If they arrived earlier, they would be able to obtain a lot of information about the Holy War and the Chaos Devil World ruins. It did not take long before they arrived at the 93 mansions. The mansions were very spacious. There were rows of houses, simple pavilions, artificial mountains, and ponds. Although it was not luxurious, it was clean and comfortable. There have been too many people in the 10,000 bell city recently. I'll have to trouble all of you to make do, Zhou Gui said calmly. Not all. Thank you for your arrangement. You're welcome. If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave. Zhou Gui and the others were about to leave. However, at this moment, Qiu Xingyi stopped them. Captain Zhou Gui, please wait. Qiu Tiankai, is there anything else? Qiu Xingyi smiled gently and replied, We came in a hurry this time, so we didn't have time to prepare a gift for the city governor. Although this moonlight armor isn't anything valuable, it's still a godly armor. I hope Captain Zhou Gui won't mind. Qiu Xingyi flipped his hand after he finished speaking. A glazed battle armor that was shining with a white light appeared in his palm. The martial ancestor sect's disciples behind him were shocked. What did Qiu Xingyi mean by this? He actually gave Zhou Gui a godly weapon. Wang Li, Chu Hen, Qi Qianying, and the others narrowed their eyes. They were shocked and could not help but shake their heads. What do you mean by this, Qiu Tiankai? Zhou Gui narrowed his eyes and pretended not to understand. It's just a token of my appreciation. I want to be friends with Captain Zhou Gui. Zhou Gui raised his eyebrows and smiled. Hee, in that case, I'll be friends with Qiu Tiankai. As he spoke, he took the Moonlight Divine Armor from Qiu Xingyi's hand and kept it in his pocket. That, Qiu Tiankai, as a friend, let me remind you that the main point of this holy war is related to this secret key. Secret key? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Wanli took a step forward and asked in a deep voice, "What secret key? Can you explain it clearly?" Zhou Gui glanced at him indifferently and shook his head with a smile. "I'm sorry, that's all I can say. You must be tired from the journey. Please rest first. We'll take our leave." Then, without waiting for the others to ask, Zhou Gui and the others turned around and left on their own. Looking at the group of people disappearing at the entrance, the martial ancestor sect's disciples cursed angrily. F*CK, F*CK, a godly armor in exchange for the word secret key. What kind of information is this? What a loss! Do you think we're fools? Everyone felt sorry for Qiu Xingyi. A godly armor was wasted just like that. However, Qiu Xingyi did not seem to care. He turned around and smiled at the crowd. "It's all right, it's just a godly armor. To us, the most important thing is to collect information about the Holy War. There's still 3 days before the chaotic Devil Realm Ruins opens. Everyone get ready." Chapter 1265. 10,000 Bells City. The secondary city in the southeast. The 93 residences. Compared to the other residences in the secondary city, the 93 residences where the martial arts great sect disciples lived were rather ordinary. It was located in a relatively remote area and was quite a distance away from the bustling streets of the city. However, there was also an advantage to it, which was that the environment was relatively quiet. Staying in the room, one could not hear the noise outside at all. In a room that was not spacious, but could still be considered bright. Chu Hen sat upright on the bed. His eyes were lightly closed, and his hands were placed on his knees. As Qiu Xingyi did not assign any tasks to Chu Hen spent his free time cultivating to pass the time. Buzz! Suddenly, a slight wave of energy spread out from within Chu Hen's body. He slowly raised his hands. In his left hand was a ball of violent dark blue lightning, and in his right hand was a ball of demonic purple flames. The two extremely domineering forces gradually approached each other in Chu Hen's palms. Chi-Chi. As soon as the mysterious killer thunder and the solitary burning demon flame came into contact, they were like two wild beasts clashing and tearing each other apart. Waves of chaotic airflow spread out in the air. Forces of different attributes would often repel each other. Even if the two forces coexisted in one body and could be used at the same time, it was extremely difficult to combine them and create a new force. After all, under normal circumstances, 1 + 1 would always be equal to 2. However, at this moment, the true inner force in Chu Hen's body began to circulate in a new way. Streams of condensed chi patterns gathered between Chu Hen's palms and intertwined with each other. Following that, a strong, invisible force surged into the interior of the dark blue lightning and the purple demonic flames. In an instant, the two domineering forces actually began to circulate in the same direction. Rumble. The dull sound of the forces rubbing against each other could be heard in the air. It was like the intertwining of dreamy ripples, and the surging, terrifying hidden force continued to spread out. The entire room was faintly trembling and uneasy. Wah! The air in the room trembled and dazzling array patterns immediately appeared on the walls and floor of the room. In order to avoid disturbing or being disturbed by others while cultivating, Chu Hen had set up a talisman array to prevent external forces from leaking out. The two forces that were constantly fusing became increasingly violent and chaotic, and the energy fluctuations they emitted were especially restless. Hua! Chu Hen suddenly opened his eyes, which emitted a sharp light. Combine. Buzz! A powerful shock wave swept out, and the two balls of light, one blue and one purple, merged together. In the next instant, An imposing aura that was 10 times stronger than before pervaded out. Astonishingly, a ball of purple lightning flickered in Chu Hen's palm. Within the purple lightning, there was a blue shadow moving about. It was incomparably gorgeous and dazzling. What was even more astonishing was the intense energy fluctuations coming from within. He was as manic as a beast. Chu Hen's eyes lit up, and he was pleasantly surprised. This was the product of a solitary burning demonic flame and the Xian Sha divine lightning. What frightening strength! As he was startled, Chu Hen began to gradually pour his true essence into it. The purple ball of lightning in his palm became increasingly strong, and its volume grew larger and larger. The entire room was instantly illuminated in purple. Even Chu Hen's eyes were faintly flickering with purple lightning. The increasingly powerful aura continued to intensify, and the talisman array in the room began to shake uneasily. Following a cracking sound, countless densely packed fine cracks quickly appeared on the surrounding walls. Chu Hen was slightly shocked, and he hurriedly withdrew the energy that he had released. Chi. Immediately after, the purple lightning in his palm rapidly shrank, and then turned into a few arcs of lightning and purple light that dissipated in the air. Feeling the strong aura that still remained in the room, Chu Hen's face surged with joy. This primordial chaos technique is really amazing. It can actually fuse the energy of the Xian Sha divine lightning and the solitary burning demonic flame so perfectly. Although he had once combined the two forces in battle against enemies, it was only a coordinated use. The lightning was mixed with the demonic flame, or the demonic flame would erupt with lightning. Just now, he had directly created a third new type of energy, the purple lightning. This time, 1 plus 1 was far greater than 2. That martial art is indeed tailor-made for you. The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow in his body was also slightly surprised and sighed softly. Chu Hen smiled. Between his eyebrows, a spirited expression surged. Right now, I have only fused the two types of energy together, and it has already formed such a powerful purple lightning. I wonder what kind of effect it will have if I fuse the other types of energy together. You haven't even learned how to walk, and you already want to learn how to run? Mo Qing Li faintly mocked. The more different types of energy there are, the stronger the repulsion between them. If you don't control it well, the resulting backlash will be enough to make you suffer. I'm just thinking about it first. I know what I'm capable of. That's good. Chu Hen smiled helplessly. Although the primordial chaos technique was amazing and powerful, it was not easy to cultivate. Starting from when he was at the martial sect, he had only just completed the initial level of comprehension after more than a month. He had to admit that he was extremely satisfied with the purple lightning that he had just created. At this time, the sound of light footsteps drifted into Chu Hen's ears. "Brother Chu Hen, are you inside?" Yi Yao's voice was the first to arrive. Long Xuan's voice followed. "If he's cultivating, don't disturb him." Chu Hen looked up, got off the bed, and went to open the door. Outside, other than Yi Yao and Long Xuan, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and his sister were also there. "What's wrong?" Chu Hen asked. "Nothing much. It's just that it's too boring to stay in the room. So I wanted to invite you to walk around the city," Zhao Qingkai said. Looking at the faces of Yi Yao and the others filled with anticipation, Chu Hen hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, then let's go together." And Yi Yao nodded happily, hugging the black and white cat at her arms, Noni happily swaying. Wanzhong City, main city. The entire Wanzhong City was extremely spacious. Because of the Holy War, countless young disciples from various sects had gathered in the city. No matter how spacious the streets were, there was still an endless stream of people. There were as many people as ants. On both sides of the streets, there were many ancient buildings that exuded a simple and unadorned aura. At the top of the buildings, there were many strange ancient bells. There were all kinds of strange ancient clocks, outlining a unique scenery that was out of the ordinary. "It's so lively. I haven't seen so many people in a long time. Ha! If Xiaowan was here, she would definitely be happy to buy and eat." While Yi Yao was looking around for fun, she couldn't help but mention Xiaowan, who was far away in the ancestral butterfly clan. I also like to buy, eat. We have to play to our heart's content today, so my brother will pay for everything. Zhao Qingkai was also quite happy. It was obvious that she and Yi Yao had similar interests. Behind them, Zhao Qingyi's eyes twitched, as if she could see the scene of flesh being cut. Chu Hen shook his head and smiled at the two in front of him. How lively! It was rare for Long Xuan to come out for a break, and she was used to the quiet. Occasionally, she would come out to enjoy the lively atmosphere. This reminds me of our hometown, Lin Xing City, Chu Hen said. Long Xuan was slightly stunned and asked in confusion, "Is there a similarity?" Chu Hen nodded. "Yes, when we were young, I had to follow behind you every time you wanted to go out." Long Xuan smiled, "But I always chased you away and didn't let you follow me. Then, you cried and complained to Long Qingyang." The two couldn't help but laugh at the memories of their childhood. At the same time, they thought of those old friends that they hadn't seen for a long time. A faint sense of longing and melancholy was like a spreading spider web, wrapping around their hearts. "Brother Chu Hen, sister Xuan, I'll buy you a mask." Yi Yao skipped over to the two. She and Zhao Qingkai each wore a little monkey mask on their faces. Even Noni, the yin-yang beast, had a little flower mask on its head. It looked comical and cute. Yi Yao then handed one to Long Xuan and Chu Hen. "Try it on. It should look good." Long Xuan's mask was a silver banshee mask with long and narrow eyes and curled lips, looking a little devilish. The pattern on Chu Hen's mask was that of a tiger. It was drawn in a rather cute shape. Under Yi Yao's request, the two put on their masks. "Sister Xuan looks so good on you, Brother Chu Hen." "Ha ha, so funny." Yi Yao couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. Chu Hen also pretended to be angry and replied, "Which shop bought this? I'll go and smash that shop. It's that small stall." Yi Yao pointed behind her. Chu Hen looked at her subconsciously. Through the crowd of dozens of meters, he could vaguely see a small stall selling masks. The stall was full of all kinds of strange masks. Several young men and women were choosing their favorite samples in front of the stall. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Just as Chu Hen was about to shift his gaze back, a tall and slender figure at the side of the stall gently took off the mask on her face and placed it back in its original place. It was a very simple mask. The pattern was a little like a fox or a kitten. However, when the corner of his eyes hurriedly glanced at the side of the young figure's face, Chu Hen's pupils tightly shrunk and his heart could not help but tremble. In his mind, a beautiful figure with eyes as bright as the stars and a graceful and luxurious temperament suddenly appeared. On the day she left, her eyes were filled with heart-wrenching sadness. Looking at the figure in the crowd from afar, it was so close, but it seemed to be so far away. It was so familiar. It was so unforgettable. Chapter 1266. Huang Fuqing, or Xiaqing. In comparison, Chu Hen preferred to call him the latter. In an instant, the entire world seemed to become silent. The noisy crowd of people around him did not seem to have any effect on Chu Hen at all. The eyes behind the mask stared at the slender figure in the crowd. Her delicate and beautiful side profile was as beautiful as it was in the past. At this moment, Chu Hen felt a little dazed, and his heart was about to jump out of his chest. He immediately tore off the mask on his face and was about to walk forward. But before he walked out, a familiar and hearty voice came from behind him. "Brother Chu Hen, it's really you." "Haha, I thought I got the wrong person." Then, Chu Hen's wrist was pulled by the person. Chu Hen turned his head to look at the other party, and what entered his eyes was a delicate and pretty face with a gentle expression. "Hey, are you Zhang Zhengshu?" It was Yi Yao who spoke. The person was a little surprised. When Yi Yao took off the mask, his eyes lit up. "Ha, Miss Yi Yao, it's you. If that's the case, this must be Miss Xuan. Hello." Long Xuan nodded and took off the mask. Zheng Shu. He was a friend that Chu Hen made when he participated in the tattoo master competition in Whale Island City. Although he didn't have a strong background, he was very loyal. In Whale Island City, when Chu Hen had a conflict with young City Lord Qi Juexin, which even caused City Lord Qi Ming to fight, Zheng Shu chose to stand on Chu Hen's side. Later, in the tomb of immortals and demons, when Xiao Xiaoan and Han Ichuan were tied to the demon-suppressing pillar by the profound Yang Palace, Han Yun's sect, and heaven-condensing pavilion, the powerless Zheng Shu had stood up for them. In the end, he almost got himself into trouble and was almost killed by profound Yang Palace's Qin He. I heard from Big Brother Chu Hen that I met you in the immortal and devil tomb. Didn't you go to the Han Yun sect? Yao asked casually. Yeah, I did go to the Han Yun sect. There were also Su Lingzhu, Zhui Weihan, and the others. After saying that, Zheng Shu turned around and waved his hand at the crowd in another direction. Senior Sister Lingzhu, over here. Look who this is. On the other side, a beautiful figure with an excellent temperament heard the voice and subconsciously turned to look in this direction. There were a few disciples of the Han Yun sect beside her. Su Lingzhu, Long Xuan, and Yi Yao weren't unfamiliar with this person. It was also during the Tattoo Master Battle in Whale Island City. Su Lingzhu had used the Reversal Pill rune to refine the super supreme grade heaven-ranked spirit herb, the Golden Jade Immortal Nectar, which had amazed countless people. And that Qi Jueshin had used the 100 piercing tool rune to forge a giant whale sacred sword. Because Qi Jueshin's sacred sword had been infused with the blood essence of City Lord Qi Ming's giant whale sacred body bloodline, Su Lingzhu had lost to Qi Jueshin later on. However, Qi Jueshin had still lost to Chu Hen's punishment armor forged with the Eternity Heart tool rune. After that, in the Immortal and Devil Tomb, Chu Hen also met Su Lingzhu and the others in addition to Zheng Shu. During the battle with the Yama King's 24 demon blood guards, Chu Hen had even saved 2 of their lives. Now that they met here, it was truly a surprise. Brother Chu Hen, I always thought that you'd been killed by the 10-feathered demon blade, Li Yin Cheng. I didn't expect you to still be alive. That's great, Zheng Shu said excitedly. However, Chu Hen wasn't in the mood to talk about this. He glanced at Su Lingzhu and the others who were walking in his direction and immediately retreated from Zheng Shu's hand. He hurriedly said, Brother Zheng, I still have something to do. Let's talk next time. After saying that, Chu Hen immediately turned around and left in a hurry. Big Brother Chu Hen, where are you going? Yi Yao hurriedly asked. However, Chu Hen didn't even turn his head and didn't answer her. Long Xuan, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and the others who were left behind had puzzled expressions on their faces. Zheng Shu even had an awkward expression on his face. After dashing through the dense crowd, Chu Hen quickly arrived beside the stall that sold masks. However, the familiar figure that was standing here earlier had already disappeared without a trace. Just now, where's the lady who was standing here? Chu Hen asked the peddler. The vendor looked at Chu Hen with a slightly strange expression before he pointed in a direction. She just left. Just left? Without another word, Chu Hen once again dashed into the chaotic and noisy crowd. His gaze quickly swept through the figures that seemed to be in his mind, but none of them was the face that was imprinted in his heart. Where are you? In just a blink of an eye, that person had already disappeared from his sight. One by one, Chu Hen grabbed the wrists of strangers and turned their shoulders. Every time he did so, it was accompanied by the other party's angry scolding. However, he still continued his search. Scenes of the Sacred Star Dynasty kept appearing in his mind, from the first time they met, and then the last time they parted. She was the princess of the Sacred Star Dynasty, the regent of the empire. However, he had personally destroyed the entire dynasty and empire. Fate. He didn't dare to love, and he didn't dare to hate. Goodbye. We'll never meet again. I wish you all the best, and the years will be peaceful. The day they parted, she leaned on his shoulder and said goodbye softly. The moment she turned around and looked back, it was heartbreaking. She turned around with a smile. If she left, if they never met again, he hoped that he could remember her smile. However, on that day, besides her smile, Chu Hen would always remember the sparkling tears at the corner of her eyes. Chu Hen wanted to shout her name loudly. His voice could even resound through half of Wanzhong City. But he didn't dare. He was afraid that after hearing his voice, she would silently leave again like before. Following the crowd, Chu Hen came to the central square of Wanzhong City. It was a very wide square. There were many magnificent stone tablets built on the square. At the top of the stone monument, towering in the center, hung a magnificent and huge ancient bell. The ancient bell was more than 100 meters long and 40 to 50 meters wide. It was engraved with a series of complicated and exquisite patterns. There was a fountain around the stone tablet under the bell for people to enjoy. Many people were playing here. Just as Chu Hen was aimlessly looking for Huang Fuqing, several unfriendly figures suddenly appeared in front of him. Enemies are bound to meet. I didn't expect you to still be alive. A cold and sinister laugh could be heard. Chu Hen glanced at them and couldn't help but frown. They continued to shout in a deep voice. What? Don't you remember me? Back in the tomb of the immortal and devil, you really made me lose face. I still remember you. Tomb of the immortal and devil? The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed as he looked at the other party. Then he remembered. Profound Sun Palace. Qin He. Back in the tomb of the immortal and devil, Han Yun's sect, Heaven Gathering Pavilion, and Profound Sun Palace were the vanguard and started a war with the demon army. At that time, several geniuses led by Qin He worked together to deal with Bai Qinyu, who was on the side of the demon race. Because Bai Qinyu had unintentionally saved Chu Hen once. When Qin He was about to use the powerful killing move, Lotus Sun descends to the world, Chu Hen directly interrupted it and secretly helped Bai Qinyu escape. Later, Qin He caught Xiao Xiaowan and Han Yichuan. Moreover, he almost tricked Zheng Shu. Finally, Chu Hen arrived in time, defeated Qin He, and saved them. It had been more than 2 years since the incident in the tomb of the immortal and devil. He didn't expect to meet them again in this Wanzhong city. It seems like you have remembered. Qin He's face was filled with coldness. Chu Hen didn't want to waste time with him. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you here. After saying that, Chu Hen wanted to bypass them and leave. But Qin He and the others didn't let him go. They directly blocked his way. Want to leave? How can it be so easy? Chu Hen's eyes were cold. Before the critical moment, a group of annoying people always appeared. An inexplicable fire surged into his heart. Get lost. The 2 cold words came directly from Chu Hen's throat. Qin He sneered. Last time, you made me lose face. Today, I will make you die a horrible death. After saying that, Qin He raised a majestic aura and rushed toward Chu Hen. The solid, true inner force rushed out like a tide. He raised his hand and threw out a palm. Light patterns that looked like golden flames quickly covered his palm and arm. Kneel! His ferocious aura was like that of a wild beast. The power of this palm made the heaven and earth airflow hot. However, just at the instant when the opponent's palm energy was about to land on Chu Hen's body, a heavy explosive sound rang out. All the energy surrounding Qin He's body was completely shattered into thousands of pieces of fine powder. What? Qin He was shocked. Before he could react, his wrist was directly grabbed by a strong palm. He didn't even have the chance to struggle. Chu Hen pulled hard, and Qin He's body immediately bent forward. Following that, a piercingly cold and rapid gust of astral wind whistled over. Qin He's pupils tightly shrunk. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and he suddenly felt dizzy. Chu Hen's knee heavily smashed into his opponent's face. He was like a sandbag that was thrown away. Qin He, who was as ferocious as a wild beast, fell to the ground. Blood spurted from his mouth and nose. He looked at Chu Hen with his eyes full of fear. He couldn't even take 1 or 2 moves. How could his opponent's strength become so terrifying? Shocked and angry, Qin He bellowed, "All of you attack." Several disciples of the Profound Sun Palace rushed forward, each of them bursting out a strong and fierce aura. The commotion here soon attracted other people around the central square. They quickly gathered around. What's going on? I'm not sure. They seem to be disciples of the Profound Sun Palace. Bang, bang. Just as the crowd surrounded Qin He, one figure after another was sent flying by the impact. 5 or 6 disciples of the Profound Sun Palace, without exception, were all howling on the ground and vomiting blood. Fight! It was over in an instant. After taking care of Qin, he, and the others, Chu Hen was ready to leave. But right at this moment, a scorching flame covered the sky and enveloped the earth. The sky was filled with colorful petals that danced in the sky like rain, as if a colorful rain of petals had fallen. The petals sprinkled in the sky. Following that, a cloud danced in the sky above the square, and then a tall and beautiful figure in red with peerless elegance appeared in the sky like an otherworldly dancer, appearing in front of everyone's eyes in a shocking manner. It's the fatal elegance of the profound Sun Palace. Lu Wuyu? Shocked voices came from the crowd. The following plot should be connected with the previous ones. If the readers have forgotten Zheng Shu, Su Lingzhu, Qin He, and Lu Wuyue, you can review the previous chapters. The chapter in the Tomb of Immortals and Demons was about the same as chapter 1050 to chapter 1060. There is no need to read it carefully. You can roughly remember it with a glance. Or you can directly read the chapter title to deepen the impression. Chapter 1267. It's the profound Yang Palace's fatal elegance. Lu Yue, a slightly trembling voice came from the crowd below the stage. The surroundings of the square were noisy and uneasy. Gorgeous flower petals fluttered in the sky like a rain, and a beautiful dancer's silhouette spun in the middle of a cloud of flame that looked like a red cloud. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, she gently landed on the ground like a feather. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes as he looked at the familiar gorgeous figure, and a hint of coldness flashed across his brows. There's really no end to this. Whoosh! At the same time, there was another chaotic uproar. The crowd quickly parted, and a dozen or so figures with powerful auras walked forward one after another. From their clothes, one could roughly tell that they were also from the profound Yang Palace. Most people's gazes fell on the young man in the lead. The man was tall and sturdy, and his sharp, eagle-like eyes flickered with a faint cold light. With every step he took, the airflow trembled a little. Lu Minghong. Oh my God, even he's here. So he's Lu Minghong, ranked 49th on the wind cloud list. His aura is really strong. Lu Yu isn't enough, and now there's Lu Minghong. That guy should be kneeling and begging for mercy. Everyone who heard the words wind cloud list couldn't help but be in awe. Some people even began to feel sad about Chu Hen's fate. Lu Wuyue glanced at Qin He and the others who were lying on the ground. Then, she glanced at Chu Hen coldly, and when she saw him, she couldn't help but be a little surprised. You're not dead yet? Lu Wuyue had a good impression of Chu Hen. Back in the immortal and demon world, it was because of Qin He that caused Lu Wuyue to have ill intentions towards Chu Hen. However, at that time, everyone thought that Chu Hen and Bai Qinyu had been killed by the 10-feather demonic blade Li Yanqing. After that, it was left unsettled. She did not expect that after more than 2 years, Chu Hen would appear in front of her again, and Qin He would be beaten half to death by him again. However, the difference was that Qin He did not even have a chance to fight back this time. Chu Hen couldn't be bothered with these people and turn around to leave. However, before he could take 2 steps, a colorful rain of fire blocked his path. I didn't say you could leave yet. A cold voice rang out from Lu Wuyue's mouth. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He turned sideways and replied, Anything else? What do you think? You think you can just walk away after injuring someone from my profound Yang Palace? Are you pretending to be crazy or acting dumb? Seeing as Lu Wuyue was interrogating Chu Hen, Lu Minghong didn't intervene. Instead, he merely acted as a spectator with a contemplative look on his face. Even so, the surrounding people could feel the invisible pressure. Everyone had every reason to believe that Chu Hen, who was standing in front of Lu Wuyue, was definitely trying to escape from this place as quickly as possible due to Lu Minghong's oppressive aura. What they didn't know was that Chu Hen's mind wasn't here at all. He gritted his teeth and said to Lu Wuyue, What do you want? Leave behind one of your arms, and you can leave. She spoke in the same tone as she did in the immortal devil tomb, the same frivolous disdain, the same arrogance that made people feel ridiculous. Chu Hen laughed. His laughter was filled with mockery. Last time, you wanted me to end my own life, and this time, you want me to leave behind an arm. You, Miss Lu, are treating me better and better. You can choose to refuse, but if you do so, you will soon regret not doing so. Lu Wuyue's tone was very calm. It was hard to tell whether she was happy or angry. She was almost the same as the first time they met. Fatal elegance. She was always so condescending. Chu Hen's eyebrows twitched as an indifferent arc rose from the corner of his mouth. Because these pieces of trash ruin my business, it would be a bit of a loss for me to leave just like that. Why don't we play a game? Miss Lu, play a game? Do you think you are worthy? Lu Wuyue replied disdainfully. The 4 wood elemental spiritual souls are in your hands, right? The moment he said that, everyone present was a little surprised. They didn't understand what Chu Hen meant. Even Lu Yuhong's eyes were filled with interest. The rule of the game is that if I can defeat you within 10 moves, you will give me the 4 wood elemental spiritual souls. Chu Hen said in a deep voice. Wow. His words caused a huge commotion. In an instant, the entire square was filled with noise and clamor. 10 moves? Did I hear that right? Who the hell is this guy? How dare he say such arrogant words? Is he bluffing? That's possible. I can't beat him in a fight, and I can't run away either. I can only bluff to scare people. What a joke. How dare you say something like that? Lu Wuyue's eyes were filled with disdain. What? You don't dare? Chu Hen retorted. Why should I bet with you? What do you have that's worth betting with me? Of course I have. Chu Hen's voice gradually deepened, and the aura he exuded became colder and colder. If I win, you just have to give me the 4 spiritual souls. If you win, not only will my life be at your disposal, but you'll also obtain the 4 ice elemental spiritual souls that I have. The 4 ice elemental spiritual souls? Lu Wuyue frowned when she heard this. A hint of surprise flashed in her eyes. The 4 ice elemental spiritual souls are with you. She clearly remembered that the 4 ice soul spirits had been snatched away by young Master Xiao Meng of the martial organization. The other 2 4 soul spirits had fallen into the hands of the 10-feathered demon blade, Li Yinqing, and the heaven-raising sword, finger Li Yuanliang. She looked at Chu Hen's indifferent face and tried to determine if he was telling the truth. Stop trying to act mysterious. I won't fall for your tricks, Lu Wuyue replied coldly. If you're that capable, why would you be afraid of falling for my tricks? I've already made myself very clear. If I can't defeat you within 10 moves, I'll consider it my loss. At that time, it's up to you whether you want to kill me or torture me. If you can't even understand this, then get the hell away from me. Get the hell away from me. The 3 cold words were heavy and clear. In front of everyone present, Chu Hen directly threw these 3 words at Lu Wuyue's face. The latter's face was flushed with anger, and her eyes were filled with killing intent. How arrogant. You better not regret this. As soon as she finished speaking, a monstrous and majestic aura erupted from Lu Wuyue's body. Scorching waves of air rose into the sky like raging waves. The people in the surroundings all retreated to avoid harming the fish in the pond. In an instant, tens of thousands of petals suddenly danced in the sky like a rain of fire. The colorful rain of fire blotted out the sky and covered the earth as it enveloped Chu Hen. The space was scorching hot and distorted. The intense heat caused the skin of the people outside the battlefield to faintly sting. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up slightly in the face of the rain of fire that was like scorching fish scales, and traces of mockery flickered in his eyes. Buzz. After that, the airflow in the surroundings trembled, and a black true energy shield immediately appeared around Chu Hen. Bang! 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 The dense rain of light smashed against the shield, and all of them were shattered. A cold light flickered in Lu Wuyue's eyes, and then her figure flashed like a swallow soaring in the sky. She stretched out a single palm, and 6 types of strange flames of different colors surged at the center of her palm. It's the sacred body of 6 flames. Someone below the battlefield exclaimed. Each of the 6 types of flames was different, and even their temperatures were different. Lu Wuyue extended her palm, and a multicolored beam of light shot out explosively. It gave rise to a terrifying aura as it attacked Chu Hen, who stood before her. At the same time, Yi Yao, Long Xuan, Zheng Shu, Su Lingzhu, and the others who had been following Chu Hen here all this time also hurried over. As soon as they parted the crowd and rushed to the front, they witnessed the scene before them. Chu Hen is over there, Zhao Qingkai shouted. On the other hand, Zheng Shu and Su Lingzhu were shocked. Chapter 1268. That's Lu Wuyue. A shocked voice came out of Zheng Shu's mouth. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai furrowed their brows slightly. They had heard of the fatal elegance, Lu Wuyue's name. Why is Brother Chu Hen here? Zheng Shu was perplexed. The others were equally perplexed. Just now, Chu Hen did not say anything and hurriedly ran away. Now that everyone had chased over here, they were surprised to see this scene in front of them. At the same time, the rainbow bridge formed by Lu Wuyue's powerful palm energy rushed toward Chu Hen. Its powerful aura displayed the might of a rainbow piercing through the moon. She immediately used the power of the bloodline limit. Everyone could already feel Lu Wuyue's fury. In the face of the peerlessly imposing rainbow bridge beam, Chu Hen raised his eyelids, and blue arcs of lightning flashed in his eyes. Clang! A deafening explosion rang out, and a dozen or so majestic bolts of lightning burst out from Chu Hen's body. The fierce and violent dark blue lightning beams intertwined around Chu Hen's body like giant pythons. They intertwined and blocked in front of him. Boom! The rainbow bridge beam collided with the giant net formed by the intertwining lightning, and it shattered inch by inch, exploding on the square. Chaotic shockwaves swept out in all directions. The stone bricks on the square were immediately shattered, and cracks spread out wantonly like a giant spiderweb. Wow, is this the legendary divine lightning of Black Slayer? Someone asked in surprise. It does look a little like the divine lightning of Black Slayer. No wonder he dared to be so arrogant. He has such a divine item to protect him. However, even with the divine lightning of Black Slayer, he can't defeat Lu Wuyue's sacred body of 6 flames. Wrong. It's the sacred body of 7 flames. What are you saying? As soon as the rainbow bridge beam was shattered, Chu Hen joined his palms together, and the power of lightning around him erupted with an even more powerful aura. 1,000 lightning escape. Rumble, several loud booms rang out in succession, and dazzling pillars of lightning pierced through the ground like giant wooden stakes. They were like sharp and cold earth spikes and fangs, and they immediately spread out around Lu Wuyue. The bitingly cold and powerful aura was like the bars of a cage, sealing off all of his escape routes. Humph, do you think you could defeat me with just the mysterious killer divine thunder? The cyclone raged, and the cold wind blew. Lu Wuyue, who was situated amidst countless bolts of lightning, was appraising Chu Hen with a look of disdain on her face. Wah! All of a sudden, Lu Wuyue's aura swelled by several fold. Streaks of 6-colored light intertwined around Lu Wuyue's body. Dazzling flames rose up into the air, and a look of indifference appeared in her eyes. 7 flames. Sacred body. In the next moment, the original 6-colored flames around her body suddenly had an additional color. It was as sacred and gorgeous as a divine rainbow after the rain. Immediately thereafter, a rainbow-colored dress appeared around Lu Wuyue's body. At the same time, a pair of dazzling and luxurious wings spread open on her back, and a burst of powerful aura erupted forth in all directions as powerful shockwaves surged through the air. Bang! A colorful ring of light swept forth in all directions with Lu Wuyue at its center. Even the shattered ground of the plaza and the pillars of lightning around her were all shattered and severed. The dazzling light shone on the faces of the spectators outside the plaza, and it was as if they were dyed with a layer of divine light. The spectators were shocked again and again. 7 flames, sacred body? The boundary of Lu Wuyue's bloodline has actually leveled up and evolved. She's too powerful. In this case, let alone 10 moves, even if he's given 100 moves, he definitely won't be a match for Lu Wuyue. Do you still believe in that so-called 10 moves? I think he's just bluffing and deliberately mystifying things. Lu Wuyue's 7 Flames sacred body could be said to have stunned the spectators. Yao, who was unaware of this, was about to step forward and interfere. Big Brother Chu Hen, let me help you. Don't be rash. Long Xuan stretched out her hand to stop her. We'll talk later. Junior sister Xuan is right. Don't be rash, let's wait and see. Zhao Qingyi also chimed in. As she spoke, she subconsciously glanced at the dozen or so people from the profound Yang Palace. When she saw the person who led the group, she could not help but have a solemn look in her eyes. Compared to that, she was more worried about the person who was standing below the plaza. That's... Zheng Shu's face was obviously pale, and he muttered with a trembling voice, Lu Minghong. Who's this person? Zhao Qingkai asked casually. Feng, he's on the wind cloud ranking. What? The spectators were even more shocked, and their eyes narrowed slightly. 7 different colored flames gathered around Lu Wuyue's body and transformed into a rainbow-colored feather robe that exuded a sacred aura. Dazzling wings unfolded behind her, and it was even more luxurious and dazzling. Her eyes were cold, and her tone was especially frivolous and disdainful. You overestimate yourself. Since you want the 4 spiritual souls, I'll fulfill your wish. Limitless heart of thorns. An arrogant voice, along with an extremely powerful and terrifying aura, spread out from the plaza. The earth shook violently. Bang! Bang! Following that, the ground cracked open layer by layer, and countless dark red blood patterns immediately covered the ground beneath Chu Hen's feet. Giant vines that resembled horned dragons shot out from the ground, and they looked like ghostly hands that came from hell, or octopus tentacles that stretched out from the deep sea. The giant vines soared into the sky, and they instantly extended hundreds of feet into the sky. The densely packed, ancient vines quickly pounced towards Chu Hen in front of him. At the same time, flames seemed to rise in Lu Wuyue's eyes, and she sneered with contempt. Prairie rage. As soon as her voice fell, an incomparably violent and scorching wave of air suddenly surged out from within the tens of thousands of giant vines. Whoosh! In an instant, countless raging 7-colored flames directly erupted from within the giant vines. Like a blossoming multicolored cloud, all of the huge thorny vines enveloping Chu Hen transformed into a sea of fire that overflowed the heavens. A 7-colored rain of fire danced in the sky, and the huge thorny vines suddenly looked like a terrifying and malevolent huge flaming beast. The scorching wave of air eroded the entire central plaza. The spectators couldn't bear the terrifying heat brought about by the sacred body of 7 flames, and they quickly retreated. At this moment, the sky changed color, and waves of fire soared into the sky. The giant thorny vines intertwined, and in an instant, Chu Hen was engulfed within. Yao, Long Xuan, Zhao Qingyi, and Zhao Qingkai all lightly furrowed their brows, and their expressions were rather cautious. As for Zheng Shu and Su Lingzhu, they both looked anxious. Qin He and the others from the profound Yang Palace already had sinister smiles on their faces. You're courting death. However, as soon as her voice trailed off, a sharp burst of sword chi suddenly erupted from within the scorching flames. Crack! A crisp cracking sound rang out, and the massive fiery vines were sliced apart one after another. A dark green sword projection with dazzling blue arcs of lightning around it tore through the layers of flames and vines before slashing toward Lu Wuyue's location. This is... The spectators were shocked. The eyes of Zheng Shu, Yi Yao, and the others faintly lit up. She actually made it out? Lu Wuyue's expression turned cold, and at the same time, a tsunami-like 7-colored flame rose behind her, and there seemed to be a phoenix cry coming from within the flame. Screech. A resonant and impassioned sound attacked everyone's eardrums. Following that, a surging heat wave that could topple mountains and overturn the seas arrived. A gorgeous giant blade with colorful shadow wings directly dragged out a majestic rainbow beam of light in the air and directly chopped towards Chu Hen's location with a whistling sound. Boom! The peerless shadow wing blade was the first to collide with the dark green sword light, and as soon as the two powerful forces collided, all kinds of violent and earth-shattering flames immediately erupted. The shock waves that swept out in all directions almost overturned the entire square. At the center of the square, the stone tablet that housed the ancient bell faintly cracked open a long, thin crack. Right at this moment, the dark green sword light suddenly blossomed with a series of dazzling lightning bolts. Boom! An explosive sound rang out, and the shadow wing blade with a destructive aura was forcibly sliced into two by the fierce sword light. What? The unexpected scene caused everyone outside the square to widen their eyes. The sword light was unstoppable, and it continued straight down. As it pierced through the shadow wing blade, not only did its attack not decrease, but it also increased greatly. It was like a shooting star that streaked across the night sky, and it directly attacked Lu Wuyue's position. The latter's pupils rapidly shrank to the size of needle tips. Clang! In the next instant, a heavy long sword cry rang out, and a green holy sword immediately tore through the seven-colored flames around Lu Wuyue's body. Lu Wuyue hurriedly retreated, but in the next second, a cold and dangerous aura firmly nailed her to the spot. Indeed, it won't take more than 10 strikes. A frivolous chuckle rang out, and a young and slender figure held a sword in his hand as he pointed it directly at Lu Wuyue's throat. Chapter 1269. Indeed, it won't take more than 10 moves, accompanied by a frivolous and indifferent voice. A sharp sword aura reverberated through the air. In an instant, everyone's pupils constricted. Lu Wuyue's eyes also trembled, and her pale face was filled with disbelief. Chu Hen is... Zheng Shu was also astonished. Su Lingzu slightly furrowed her brows, and her eyes were filled with surprise. Even the profound Yang Palace's disciples were dumbfounded. A scene that exceeded everyone's expectations occurred. Chu Hen held the blue sky sword in one hand, and the sharp tip of the sword was directly pressed against Lu Wuyue's throat. Dark blue arcs of lightning were flickering around the sword. At this moment, the fatal elegance was actually being pressed against the throat by a nameless nobody. No one could have imagined that this would be the outcome. Now, it seemed that Lu Wuyue's request for Chu Hen to leave an arm was extremely laughable. "Give it to me." Chu Hen gently raised his left hand and indifferently looked at Lu Wuyue's pale face. The powerful pressure coming from the tip of the sword made her unable to move. It was as if the green holy sword flickering with lightning would mercilessly pierce through her throat if she moved even the slightest bit. If she could defeat her opponent within 10 moves, she would have to hand over the 4 wood-attribute spiritual spirits. Lu Wuyue bit her red lips, and her face alternated between pale and red. She had been utterly humiliated this time. She really couldn't accept that she had to lower her head and admit defeat to Chu Hen just like that. "What? Do you want to go back on your word, young Miss Lu?" Chu Hen calmly replied. At the same time, the lightning that covered the sword emitted an even more astonishing aura. The violent arcs of lightning were like little snakes that flicked their tongues in and out, sending chills down one's spine. Lu Wuyue's expression changed again. She gritted her teeth and raised her right hand. Then, a strange energy rhythmically emanated from her hand. Buzz, a jade-colored cyclone of light surged in the center of her palm. Following that, everyone's eyes lit up, and they saw a green energy crystal appear in Lu Wuyue's hand. The crystal was angular, and there was a wisp of green energy surging within it. "Humph, here you go," Lu Wuyue shouted in a cold voice. She then hurled the crystal in her hand toward Chu Hen. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly, then withdrew the sword in his hand and reached out to receive the 4 wood-attribute soul spirits. However, in the instant after the blue Ran sword left Lu Wuyue's throat, a vigorous and powerful aura suddenly rushed toward Chu Hen from outside the arena. Hua! Not waiting for Chu Hen to react, a pillar of fire that soared to the sky furiously rose in front of him. Everyone in the audience was shocked. The sudden appearance of the berserk aura was as fierce as a dragon emerging from the sea. Chu Hen waved his sword, and, at the same time, the sharp sword aura split the pillar of fire apart. At the same time, a violent flame wave swept out. The sky was filled with a rain of fire between the sky and the earth of the square. In the next instant, a figure that emanated a piercingly cold aura suddenly appeared in front of Lu Wuyue, and he grabbed the 4 wood-type soul spirits with a single hand. A powerful and majestic aura spread out in all directions, and the opponent's aura was as unshakable as a mountain. Under the colorful rain of fire, Chu Hen's eyes were cold as he stared at the tall and burly figure in front of him. The expressions of Zheng Shu, Su Lingzhu, Zhao Qingyi, Yi Yao, and the others changed. The thing that they were most worried about still happened. I knew that Lu Minghong wouldn't just stand there and do nothing, Zheng Shu said anxiously. Lu Minghong, he was a genius ranked 49th on the wind cloud list. Even when he was standing outside the arena, the aura he exuded was hard to ignore. Now that he was standing in the arena, his aura made it hard for everyone to breathe. Hua! Their gazes met, and it was like a fierce collision between sparks and fire. Chu Hen held his sword in a reverse grip and said calmly, "Are you not going to give me the 4 soul spirits? I already gave them to you, but you didn't catch them." Lu Minghong replied indifferently. "Is that so? But I saw you snatch them away. Why? Are the people of the profound Yang Palace so untrustworthy?" After saying that, Chu Hen looked at Lu Wuyue, who was standing behind Lu Minghong. However, the latter replied with a cold voice, "I've already given them to you, but you didn't catch them. Are you blaming me for that?" Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and smiled indifferently. "That's a good explanation. Then it's none of your business." He paused for a moment and looked back at Lu Minghong. "I wonder what will it take for you to return the 4 soul spirits to me?" A cold light flashed in Lu Minghong's eyes. "Don't you like to play games? Then let me play another game with you. 10 moves as well. If you can win, I'll give you the 4 soul spirits." "Oh." Chu Hen was a little surprised. "Of course, you can refuse, no?" Chu Hen replied without hesitation. Everyone was stunned. They secretly scolded Chu Hen for not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. At the same time, Zheng Shu, who was outside the arena, was also constantly signaling Chu Hen with his eyes, telling him not to be fooled. But then Chu Hen said again, "It's really boring to fight for the 4 soul spirits. Why don't we increase the stakes?" "Interesting." Lu Minghong was slightly surprised. "Increase what stakes?" "Yours an arm." "Why?" The cold words came out of Chu Hen's mouth, and the entire Central Plaza was in an uproar. In an instant, everyone looked at Chu Hen with astonishment. They even wondered if they had misheard. What did he just say? Lu Minghong's arm? Is this guy crazy? He's crazy. Who is he? Lu Wuyue was also extremely bewildered. She looked at Chu Hen's calm expression and felt inexplicably uneasy. Lu Minghong's expression immediately turned cold. Killing intent surged in his eyes. "How do you want to bet? You said that if I don't lose within 10 moves, you'll return the 4 soul spirits to me. But if I win within 10 moves, I'll leave your arm behind." His words were sharp like needles, so sharp that it made people's scalps go numb. Huge waves were set off in the hearts of everyone present. Defeat Lu Minghong within 10 moves? Even those who were ranked more than 10 places higher than him on a leaderboard wouldn't dare to say something like that. What kind of ability did this nameless pawn have? How dare he make such a big promise? What's Chu Hen doing? Isn't he being too impulsive? Zhao Qingkai was also anxious. Long Xuan and Yao also shook their heads inwardly. They didn't know that Chu Hen, who looked calm on the outside, was actually filled with anger. These people kept coming to provoke him, which made him very unhappy. Lu Minghong's sharp eyes became even colder. What an arrogant thing. What if you lose?" Chu Hen raised his head and replied indifferently. "Do whatever you want. Fine. A beast-like roar came from Lu Minghong's throat. He clenched his hands into fists, and violent flames immediately erupted from his body. "Show me your true abilities." Prairie fire. After he finished speaking, Lu Minghong clasped his palms together, and a monstrous flame rose from within his body. Along with a scorching tide that covered the sky and covered the earth, a huge fireball with a diameter of several tens of meters suddenly appeared in front of everyone. It set off a terrifying aura of destruction as it roared towards Chu Hen. Compared to the move that Lu Wuyue had just used, Lu Minghong's was undoubtedly several times stronger. The ground was scorched black, and the surging heat wave caused the space to distort. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he raised the blue sky sword. Then he moved his arm, and the blue sky sword immediately turned into a beautiful light and shot out. Chi-Chi. In the process of moving, countless violent and piercingly cold dark blue lightning quickly covered the sword, forming a majestic lightning sword light that was more than 10 meters long. Bang! The powerful large fireball collided with the swift and fierce sword glow as a series of thunderous whistling sounds rang out in the air. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the blue ran sword directly pierced through the fireball, sweeping up a sharp killing intent as it chopped towards Lu Minghong behind it. Oomph! The latter's eyes were suffused with a cold light. He opened his hand and grabbed the blue sky sword with his bare hands. Swish! However, at the same time that Lu Minghong was about to grab the sword, an afterimage flashed in the air, and a slender hand grabbed the sword hilt first. So fast, everyone below the stage was secretly shocked. Chu Hen's calm and indifferent face was immediately reflected in Lu Minghong's eyes. In the next moment, the ice-cold sword drew a crescent arc in the air, and like a flickering light, it directly swung towards his opponent's throat. Hiss! Chapter 1270. Hiss! The lightning-fast sword edge was like a fleeting shadow, instantly piercing through Lu Minghong's throat. Everyone's expressions changed, but not a single drop of blood flowed out from the wound. Lu Minghong's expression became extremely strange. Buzz, the iron-like palm firmly grasped Chu Hen's wrist, and then Lu Minghong's body ignited, transforming into a tall and majestic flaming ape. "It's a fire clone," someone exclaimed. Yes, and the transformation technique. As expected of a genius on the wind cloud list, he instantly executed two secret techniques. Roar. The fire ape's body rapidly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, it became 7 to 8 meters tall. A fierce aura that soared into the sky swept through the entire area. Following that, its other arm that was as sturdy as steel pulled back, and in an instant, it finished accumulating power and threw a punch at Chu Hen's head, sensing the incomparably ferocious and violent aura. Everyone in the audience was secretly shocked. Everyone felt that Chu Hen was really courting death. The powerful and fierce aura whistled down, and the fire ape's fist was as big as a water tank. Chu Hen, who was underneath it, looked pitifully weak. Chu Hen looked up, and the corner of his eyes seemed to flicker with silver light. Boom! An incomparably intense and heavy explosion exploded on the plaza. Along with the raging waves of flames, under countless gazes filled with shock, the body of the berserk fire ape, which was suppressing Chu Hen, suddenly exploded from the middle. Waves of air soared into the sky, and fireballs fell like rain. Along with the ferocious fire ape that was smashed to pieces, streaks of piercingly cold lightning that were like silver pythons emitted waves of high-pitched noises around Chu Hen's body. The excited momentum was like the long cries of countless thunderbirds. An invisible and powerful aura leaked out from Chu Hen's body, and his eyes that flickered with lightning arcs looked straight at the area in front of him. Under the colorful rain of fire, Lu Minghong had unknowingly flashed into the sky. His eyes were indifferent as he looked down at Chu Hen below. He raised a single hand towards the sky. A cluster of rapidly rotating, violent energy whirlpools stirred the air in all directions around his arm, emitting a heaven-splitting might. The whirlpool of energy rapidly expanded and instantly turned into a huge golden wheel that spanned 100 meters. The dazzling light was like the sun in the sky. The sawteeth on the edge of the golden wheel rotated rapidly, giving off a destructive aura. "You could die now." Profound sun chop. Lu Minghong bellowed, and immediately threw the golden wheel of death towards Chu Hen. The golden wheel of death, which was spinning at a high speed, was constantly emitting sharp blades of fiery cyclones. It could be said that it was tearing the air apart. Airwaves filled the sky, and wherever it went, it would destroy everything. Not good. Zheng Shu, who was below the stage, cried out in panic. Zhao Qingyi, Long Xuan, and the rest also furrowed their brows, their faces filled with solemnity. However, at almost the same time, the thousands of lightning bolts surrounding Chu Hen's body also burst forth, like a three-dimensional electric net, intertwining with each other, slanting across the sky, and met the attack head-on. As it moved, all the lightning tribulations intertwined with each other, releasing a brilliant light. The unceasingly exploding might shocked the surroundings. Following that, a ferocious lightning dragon burst out from the endless lightning bolts, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, opening its huge mouth to meet the profound sun-golden wheel. Clang! The violent explosions were like the collision of meteors in the heavens, and the entire square instantly shook violently and heavily. The luxurious and resplendent silver lightning dragon and the dazzling golden wheel tore each other apart, and a series of violent energy shockwaves were like a storm that could shake the heavens. Disorderly lightning bolts wantonly darted about. Tens of thousands of dazzling golden lights flickered in the sky, accompanied by a majestic halo that whistled in all directions. The surrounding onlookers were all shaken and forced to retreat. The stone monument of the ancient bell in the center of the square shook uneasily, and cracks appeared on the stone monument. The huge bell that had been silent for a long time also let out a deep and melodious sound. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the place where Chu Hen stood. The stone bricks around him were all shattered, and even the ground caved in to form a huge pit. In the midst of the chaotic airflow, Chu Hen stood there unscathed, and the lightning bolts that lingered around him were still incomparably powerful. He blocked it. Some people were shocked, and some people were happy. The eyes of Zheng Shu, Zhao Qingyi, and the others all lit up. As for profound sun palaces Lu Wuyue, Qin He, and the others, they couldn't help but squint their eyes. Chu Hen's strength was really beyond their expectations. What exactly is this guy's background? Qin He's brows furrowed like two dead silkworms. It had only been 2 years, and the opponent had already reached the level where he could contend with Lu Minghong. It was really shocking, and he felt uneasy. Lu Minghong, who was in the sky, quietly had traces of killing intent in his eyes. Not bad, but it's a pity that you won't last 10 moves. After saying that, a majestic aura that was as vast as a mountain surged in the void, and the sky above the 9 heavens was instantly covered by a gorgeous burning cloud. In an instant, the temperature of the city within a radius of tens of miles suddenly rose. Everyone felt as if they were in a huge, steaming furnace. Feeling the powerful aura from Lu Minghong, the expressions of the people outside changed again and again. Looks like Lu Minghong is going to use his real strength. I don't believe that guy has the ability to stop him. Who knows? Looking at him, it seems like he still has a trump card that he hasn't used yet. Oomph. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth faintly rose into a cold arc. Following that, there seemed to be an obscure purple light flickering within his eyes. The bewitching and demonic purple light surged out of his body, and under the astonished gazes of everyone present, the dark blue lightning surrounding Chu Hen's body gradually changed into a strange purple. This is Zhao Qingyi, Yi Yao, and the others' pupils shrank, and they were extremely shocked. Even for them, this was the first time they had seen such an unpredictable purple lightning. Chu Hen's aura continued to grow, and the demonic purple lightning seemed to be filled with an extremely powerful destructive force. The auras of both sides collided violently in the air. The airflow in the entire central square of the city became restless and uneasy. More and more people were attracted to this place. At this moment, a roar filled with deterrence came from the crowd at the back of the square. All of you stop. How can you act recklessly in the 10,000-bell city? Everyone's heart jumped. Immediately after, a dozen or so 10,000-bell city guards clad in battle armor dashed towards them with imposing auras. Lu Minghong's eyes darkened, and he hesitated for a moment. Then the powerful aura he emitted gradually retracted, and the purple lightning that enveloped Chu Hen also retracted into his body. The group of powerful and majestic guards arrived in front of the two. This is a restricted area of the city. Don't you dare use force here. The leader was a general of about 30 years old. When he saw Lu Minghong, his expression was obviously startled, and his tone immediately became gentler. Genius, Lu? What's going on with you guys? Lu Minghong's figure moved, and he descended from the sky. Captain Zhua. Lu Minghong obviously knew this person, and he cupped his fist slightly, then replied, I had an accident with this person, and I didn't expect to cause trouble for Captain Zhua. I'm really sorry. Oh, that person immediately looked at Chu Hen, frowned, and said coldly, Who are you? Without waiting for Chu Hen to reply, Zhao Qingyi had already led the others to the front. I'm really sorry. We are disciples of the martial sect, and we have disturbed others here. Please forgive us. Martial sect? Hearing these two words, an uproar broke out. Su Lingzhu and Zheng Shu were also surprised. Lu Wuyue's eyes also narrowed. She didn't expect that Chu Hen was actually from the same sect as young Master Qingsheng, Shao Alliance. However, when they were in the Immortal and Devil Tomb, they didn't seem to know each other. Could it be that he joined the martial sect later? Hearing that the other party was a disciple of the martial sect, the guard captain's gaze softened, but his tone was still rather cold. No matter which sect you are from, you are not allowed to cause trouble in the 10,000-bell city. Seeing that you have violated the rules, I will let it go for today, but if you cause trouble again, you will be banned from even taking half a step into the main city. Lu Minghong smiled. Captain Zhua is right. I will pay for everything that is damaged here. Lu Tian is too serious. I'm just targeting some people. I believe that with Lu Tian's character, he will not fight with some nameless people in a place like this. After all, he was a proud son of heaven on the wind cloud list. Wherever he went, people would respect him. In comparison, Chu Hen's side was not looked up to. Although he was unhappy, he could only follow the local rules in someone else's territory. Then, the guard dispersed the crowd and ordered everyone to leave. Lu Minghong looked at Chu Hen's group with a mocking expression. Looks like they saved your life. Chu Hen raised his brows slightly and replied indifferently, I'll leave the four soul spirits with you first. I will come back to get them. Oh, that's great. Lu Minghong's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Chu Hen looked at him fearlessly, and his throat moved as he lightly spat out a few words. Chapter 1271. Amidst the commotion, the crowd that was watching the show in the square dispersed like the tide. There were many discussions among the crowd. It's actually a martial sect disciple. What a surprise. There are only a few people in the martial sect who are more powerful. Qiu Xingyi, Pei Yi, Wang Li, and Qi Qianying. It seems like the rest aren't that great. You really don't say. I heard that the martial sect had a sect war a while ago. Guess what? What happened? Qiu Xingyi didn't participate. I heard that the champion was taken by a new disciple. That new disciple even broke Pei Ye's legs. Holy sh*t, is that true? That's very believable. Could it be that new disciple? Hearing the low whispers in the surroundings, the people of the profound Yang Palace were both shocked and bewildered, especially Lu Wuyue. She stared at the back of Chu Hen and the others as they left. Her eyes were filled with gloomy anger. Today, her title of Fatal Elegance had been completely destroyed by this man. She never thought that the nameless passerby in the Immortal and Devil Tomb would embarrass her in front of everyone. Don't worry. He's lucky today. If I meet him in the Sacred War, I'll definitely take his life for you. Lu Minghong walked up to her and said in a deep voice. Lu Wuyue's expression softened a little when she heard his words. She nodded lightly as a cold gleam flashed in her eyes. Oh my God, Brother Chu Hen, isn't your cultivation base improving too quickly? I can't believe that it was you just now. After leaving the square, Chu Hen and the others went back the way they came. Until now, Zheng Shu was still in a trance. Although Chu Hen was already very powerful in the past, he was now even more powerful than before. However, Chu Hen seemed to be absent-minded. He would look around after taking a few steps, as if he was looking for something. What's wrong? Long Xuanchuang noticed that something was wrong with him. After a fruitless search, a trace of loneliness flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. He shook his head. It's nothing. I must have seen wrongly. Seen wrongly? What did you see? Zhao Qingkai asked subconsciously. An old friend that I haven't seen for a long time. An old friend? Long Xuanchuang and Yi Yao couldn't help exchanging glances. If this person was an old friend of Chu Hen's, then the two of them should know him as well. Before they could ask again, Chu Hen looked back at Zheng Shu and Su Lingzhu. I'm sorry, I was a little anxious before. How are the two of you doing in the Hanyan sect? Zheng Shu scratched his head with a smile. I'm just at the level where people don't despise me. Senior Sister Lingzhu has already become an elite disciple of the Palace Hall, and I'm now her subordinate guard. We were sent to the main city to gather information, but we didn't expect to meet you guys. Although Zheng Shu said it with a smile, his tone was somewhat dry. He and Su Lingzhu were inscriptionists from the same place, but their status in the Hanyan sect was much lower. If it was someone else instead of Su Lingzhu, their days would probably be even more difficult. All right, Brother Chu Hen, why did you go to the martial organization? And when you were in the Immortal and Devil Tomb, weren't you? Zheng Shu asked immediately. Su Lingzhu's brows were also slightly curious. Chu Hen only shook his head. It's a long story. I went to the martial organization for my own personal matters. By coincidence, I came to participate in the Sacred War. Zheng Shu nodded, then said, You guys are here to gather information as well, right? Do you want to share with us? Chu Hen smiled and replied slightly helplessly, We don't have any useful information to share with you. We just arrived today. That's all right. We don't know much either. I don't know if you guys know, but there are many ancient ruins in the Chaos Devil domain, and those ruins require a secret key to open. Secret key? Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingsai's eyes lit up. Chu Hen was also slightly surprised. What kind of secret key? Zheng Shu glanced at Su Lingzhu, who nodded and continued. We haven't found out exactly what kind of secret key it is, but we heard that it's something with a built-in energy body. Different secret keys can open the corresponding ruins, and some ruins even require more than one secret key to open. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and he muttered in a deep voice. In other words, the theme of the Sacred War this time will revolve around the secret key. You can say that. Apart from this information, it's said that the scale of the recruitment for the Holy War this time is bigger than any of the previous ones. Many Saint clans are participating. I believe the competition for the Wind Cloud ranking this year will be especially intense. Biggest scale? Sacred clans? After listening to the other party's words, Chu Hen had a vague idea in his mind. Overall, the situation that the martial organization had to face this time was more complicated than before. As they spoke, they had already arrived at the entrance of the main city's outer street. Brother Chu Hen, our Hanyun sect lives in the 45th prefecture, Zheng Shu said. We live in the 93rd prefecture. That's quite a distance away. Zheng Shu seemed to be in high spirits as he cupped his fists. No matter what, it's great to meet you again. After the Sacred War recruitment is over, let's have a good drink. All right, it's a deal. To be honest, Zheng Shu was the first friend he made after leaving the Eastern continent. It was indeed fate that they met here. It's a deal. After a simple farewell, both parties returned to the Hanyun sect and the martial organization's headquarters. Senior Sister Lingzhu, you're happy too, right? Zheng Shu asked with a smile. Even though Su Lingzhu hadn't said a word from the beginning to the end, her heart was indeed filled with joy. I didn't expect him to go to the martial organization. Su Lingzhu muttered. That's right. I'm also very surprised. Zheng Shu heaved a sigh of relief. There seemed to be a hint of contemplation between his brows. During the last holy war, the martial sect was almost annihilated. If we meet the Lingyun sect again, I'm really worried. Zheng Shu did not continue. Su Lingzhu's eyes flickered with worry. Wanzhong City, the 93rd prefecture of the southeastern secondary city. At this moment, the atmosphere in the 93 prefectures was tense. Wang Li, Wu Yin, Qi Qianying, and the other martial organization disciples stared angrily at the hundreds of uninvited guests. Who are you? You actually came here to cause trouble. Could it be that you are looking down on my martial sect? Wang Li, who had always been gentle and lazy, was rather displeased. He glared angrily at the black-robed man in the lead and shouted, "Ha, cause trouble? Not really. I came here today to verify one thing." The black-clothed man's expression was arrogant, and his brows were filled with disdain. Before you ask for help, please tell me your name first. Lu Qian from the Imperial Sword Sect. Lu Qian? Everyone's expression changed slightly when they heard the name. He was ranked third among the Imperial Sword Sect's disciples. His profound, heavenly heavy sword could be said to have reached the acme of perfection. Although he was not ranked on the Wind Cloud ranking, he had the record of fighting a genius powerhouse on the ranking without being defeated. As for those who were not ranked on the ranking, it was difficult for him to find a match for them. He was regarded as the strongest person on the Wind Cloud ranking, and his fame far surpassed Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qi Qianying, and the others. Wang Li smirked. The martial organization and the Imperial Sword Sect have no enmity. Why are you here to verify something? Chapter 1272. There was indeed no enmity between us in the past. However, just a year ago, my junior brother Luo Lu died in the hands of your martial sect's disciple in the northern River Ice region. How are we going to settle this score? Lu Qian's eyes were cold. The Imperial Sword Sect's disciples behind him also had a look of hatred on their faces. Luo Lu was killed. Wang Li and Qi Qianying could not help but look at each other. It had to be said that Luo Lu had a bit of fame. Among the many disciples of the Imperial Sword School, he was rather elegant. Who would have thought that he would die more than a year ago? Furthermore, the other party said that he was killed by someone from the martial sect. What can prove that someone from the martial sect killed Luo Lu? Wang Li replied coldly. Back then in the northern River Ice region, that bitch Hua, she from the Huanyu Palace, was also there. She personally told me that junior brother Luo Lu died under the Northern Star Art of the martial sect. Northern Star Art? Upon hearing this, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and the rest looked at Wu Yin in unison. Even Wu Yin was taken aback. She walked forward and asked in confusion, "In the entire martial sect, only junior sister Yao and I have learned the Northern Star Art. However, we have never left the martial sect before this, nor have we been to the so-called Northern River Ice region." Sophistry. Lu Qian's eyes turned cold. I, Wu Yin, dare to take responsibility for what I do. I have never participated in the matter of killing Luo Lu. So how can you say that I'm sophistry? I'm afraid you've been tricked by someone, and you still don't know? I know very well whether I've been tricked or not. Let me ask you again. Did you kill junior brother Luo Lu? An invisible and powerful aura surged out of Lu Qian's body, causing the surrounding airflow to become restless. Wu Yin frowned slightly and shouted in a deep voice, "No!" Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic sword force erupted from Lu Qian's body, accompanied by a heavy vibration of power. A thick, blunt, and edgeless heavy sword appeared in Lu Qian's hand. The heavy sword was surrounded by a powerful golden light as it swung horizontally towards Wu Yan's head. Wu Yan's pupils constricted slightly, but she stood her ground without moving. Buzz! A powerful shockwave spread out in the air, and the edgeless heavy sword in Lu Qian's hand actually stopped about a finger's width away from Wu Yan's head. Even though Wu Yan didn't swing her sword, her aura was completely suppressed. All the martial sect disciples were furious and almost drew their swords. Looking at Wu Yan's calm expression, Lu Qian revealed a contemptuous smile. You do have some guts, but unfortunately, you're not strong enough. I believe that you didn't kill Luo Lu because you don't have the ability to do so with your cultivation base. Taunt. It was a mockery that was even more disdainful than defeating the other party. Wu Yin suppressed the rising anger in her heart and shouted in a deep voice, "Now, please leave this place, ha ha." Lu Qian laughed maniacally. The martial sect is really getting worse every year. It seems like other than Xiao Xingyi, the rest are all trash. There are a lot of cannon fodder in this holy war. With that, he waved his hand. Let's go. All the disciples of the ruling Sword Gate returned home amidst a wave of mocking laughter. All the martial sect disciples behind them gritted their teeth in anger. There were even a few hot-blooded disciples who wanted to draw their swords and block the way, but they were stopped by Wang Li. Back off. Senior brother Wang Li, these bastards are too much. Are we just going to take it? Wang Li's eyes were filled with coldness. Senior brother Qiu isn't here. Let's not act rashly. But back off. Even though everyone had a belly full of anger, they could only swallow it for now. The Holy War had not started yet, and all the sects and forces had many concerns. The martial sect had more concerns than the other sections. A bunch of useless people. What a waste of time. The people of the ruling Sword Gate cursed as they walked. They, who had taken advantage of the situation, were especially proud. Just as they walked out of the gate of the 93 prefectures, a few young figures walked towards them. One of them happened to block the path of a ruling Sword Gate disciple. The disciple shouted and raised his hand to slap him. Where did this dog come from? Scram. However, before his palm could land, his entire arm stopped in midair. You! The disciple was shocked. He saw that his wrist was firmly locked in front of him by the other party's palm. In particular, the other party's strength was like an unshakable iron pincer, causing him to be unable to move. Get out of my way. In his anger, the disciple raised his other hand and slapped towards the other party's face. However, in the next moment, a pair of indifferent eyes were reflected in the other party's eyes. When the ruling Sword Gate disciple came into contact with the indifferent eyes, his heart suddenly trembled. It was as if he saw the shadow of death in the depths of his soul. His face suddenly turned pale, as if he had encountered an unprecedented great fear. Friend, watch your path in the future, Chu Hen said softly. Then, he let go of his opponent's arm and entered the 93 prefectures with Yi Yao, Long Xuan, and the others behind him. When he entered, he coincidentally brushed past Lu Qian. The two of them exchanged glances from the corner of their eyes, causing invisible air waves to appear in the air. After a fleeting moment of surprise, Lu Qian raised his eyebrows and looked at Chu Hen's back. The corner of his mouth was still curled up in a disdainful smile. As for the ruling Sword Gate disciple, he stood rooted to the ground. What's wrong with you? Someone beside him asked. No, I don't know. I feel as if I just died. TSK, what a joke. Even a bunch of trash from the martial sect can scare you to this extent? Let's go, he's acting. The others around him did not think much of what had happened to the disciple. They all felt that he was purposely exaggerating. Who knew that the disciple's back was already completely drenched in cold sweat? Everyone is here? Chu Hen, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest who had returned to the courtyard were surprised to see the martial sect disciples standing in the courtyard. What's wrong? All of you look so serious. Who were those people just now? Zhao Qingyi asked. Wu Yan let out a sigh of relief and shook her head. The ruling Sword Gate. Ruling Sword Gate? The few of them were obviously stunned. What are they doing here? Yi Yao asked in confusion. Wu Yan still shook her head and gave a simple account of what had happened. After listening, Yi Yao could not help but sneer. They're purely here to cause trouble, right? In the entire martial sect, only senior brother Wu Yan and I know the North Star execution. It would be strange if their people died in the hands of the North Star execution. I also said that they were being unreasonable, but from Lu Qian's appearance, it doesn't seem like he's lying. Wu Yan did not understand what he meant. Meanwhile, Long Xuan was deep in thought. She glanced at Chu Hen beside her, her phoenix eyes revealing a slightly complicated expression. Others might not know, but she was very clear that she had personally witnessed the scene. Chu Hen did not say much, but there was a hint of seriousness in his eyes. Night. A bright moon quietly hung on the branches. Compared to the hustle and bustle of the day, the night of the 10,000-bell city was also brightly lit and bustling. However, the martial sect disciples were having a hard time in this sleepless night. On their first day in the 10,000-bell city, they were bullied by the ruling sword gate. Not only did they lose face, their confidence was also greatly affected. The martial sect, who were already under a lot of pressure, felt that their future was bleak. Under the moonlight, a young figure was drinking alone. He was probably the only one who did not feel melancholy because of being bullied. His worries came from somewhere else. At the same time, in a majestic palace in the 10,000-bell city, the candlelight illuminated the simple and elegant room, making it bright and spacious. In front of the table, a delicate figure sat on a chair. In front of her was a basket of needles and thread. The exquisite needle and thread were as nimble as a fish in the water. The golden candlelight shone on her delicate face, making her look even more charming. She was magnificent and beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Katja! At this moment, the door was pushed open, and a handsome young figure walked in. The lady raised her beautiful eyes, and there was a faint smile of love in her eyes. "You're back." Seeing that she was fiddling with some needles, the man seemed a little helpless. Chapter 1273. Sis, can you not sew clothes for me again? You're the princess and regent of the previous dynasty, yet you're doing all the menial work. Looking at the basket on the table, the man shook his head helplessly. Then he walked into the room and sat down on the chair next to the girl. The beautiful girl didn't get angry at the man's complaints. She continued to play with a needle and thread in her hands. "We're just ordinary people now. Everything in the past is in the past. Are you sure it's all in the past?" The man cupped his chin and looked at her. The girl nodded. "Yes, it's all in the past. Since it's all in the past, why are all the clothes you made for me too small?" The girl was stunned. "Too small? What do you think?" The man was speechless. As he spoke, he stood up. "Can't you see how tall I've grown? Every time you make clothes for me, I feel like I'm wrapped in a dumpling. I can't even walk comfortably." After so many years, even though he had always been by her side, she didn't pay much attention to him. He was no longer the inexperienced youth from before. Unknowingly, he had grown to nearly 9 meters tall. His shoulders were broad and strong, and his previous childishness had turned into a masculine aura. You've grown so big already?" The girl smiled in relief. "Oh my God." The man felt a headache coming on. "Sis, have you been dreaming all these years? Tell me the truth. Have you never forgotten that person? What are you talking about?" The girl ignored him and continued to sew the new clothes. "Stop lying to yourself. These clothes weren't made for me. When you were sewing them, you were thinking about that person. That's why they don't fit me." The girl still didn't reply. Her jade-like fingers nimbly knotted the thread, and her beautiful teeth bit through the thread. Then, she picked up the newly finished clothes. "All right, this will definitely fit. Hurry up and try it on." With that, she put the clothes on the man's shoulders before he could refuse. "Sis, it's been so many years. I've left the Eastern continent for so long. I won't see that person again in this lifetime. Moreover, senior brother, Xiao Yao treats you so well and helped us so much." Hearing his words, the woman's lily-white hands that were tidying his clothes paused for a moment. Soon after, she shook her head as a gloomy expression appeared in her clear and gentle eyes. One was in the eastern land, while the other was in the midland. They were hundreds of millions of miles apart and would never see each other again in this life. Between her eyebrows, there seemed to be a hint of sadness. Senior brother Xiao Yao's talent is extraordinary and his strength is extraordinary. There are very few people in this world who can match up to him. In my heart, other than senior brother Xiao Yao, no other man is worthy of you." The man's tone was especially solemn. However, the woman only shook her head indifferently. "Don't say these words again. Senior brother Xiao Yao is indeed unparalleled, but I'm not worthy of being associated with him. Don't say too much outside, lest you ruin his reputation. Since you know how good senior brother Xiao Yao is, why don't you accept him?" The woman sighed, but did not reply. The candlelight on the table flickered, and the bright wick was like a flame elf. The man could not help but feel guilty when he saw the faint sadness in the woman's eyes. "Sister, I'm sorry. I just want you to live a better life." At this moment, a series of light and steady footsteps came from outside the door. Then, there was a light knock on the door. "Junior sister Xiaqing, are you asleep?" "Senior brother Xiao Yao." The man's eyes lit up, and without waiting for the woman to speak, he turned around and opened the door. Outside the door stood a handsome young man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. He wore a gorgeous black robe, and his temperament was out of this world. His body exuded an innate arrogance and noble aura. "Junior brother Xiahao, you're here too." The man was stunned for a moment, and then revealed a warm smile. "Senior brother Xiao Yao, come in quickly." Xiahao happily welcomed the man into the house. However, the woman behind him replied softly, "It's so late. What's the matter, senior brother Xiao Yao?" "Oh, it's like this. Tonight in Wanzhong City, there's a beautiful night market. I want to invite junior sister Xiaqing to go sightseeing. Senior brother Xiao Yao is considerate, but it's already late, and I want to rest early. I'm afraid I'll spoil your mood." The man nodded. Junior sister Xiaqing likes the quietness of the courtyard. That noisy night market, you don't have to go. And I hope senior brother Xiao Yao can forgive me. Xiaqing continued, "However, help me send senior brother Xiao Yao off." They hadn't talked for long, and she wanted to chase him away. Xiao felt helpless. "Senior brother Xiao Yao, let's go." The man named Xiao Yao smiled and nodded. Junior sister Xiaqing, rest early. The two walked to the door, and Xiao turned around. "Sister, this dress is too small again." After leaving Xiaqing's house, Xiao tidied up his clothes and twisted his upper body, complaining as he walked. "Seriously, there are so many clothes, but none of them can be worn. I feel like I'm almost like a tortoise in a turtle shell." The young man beside him raised his eyebrows and suddenly said, "Junior brother Xiaohan, what's wrong? Senior brother Xiao Yao? I wonder if your sister has a knot in her heart? What's there to worry about? It's just that she can't forget that person." Xiao scratched his armpit and said casually, "Oh, who?" Xiaohao's eyes were filled with complicated emotions, and his voice was a little low. "I don't know how to say it. He's our enemy, but also our benefactor. He destroyed our sacred star empire, but at the same time, he helped us escape from the control of the royal ancestor. Although I have some complaints about him, my sister, I see. It's that person that junior sister Xiaqing can't forget." Xiao tugged at the corner of his clothes, and then said solemnly, "Although that person is not bad on our side, he can't be compared to senior brother Xiao Yao at all. Compared to you, it's like the difference between heaven and earth." Hee. The young man smiled faintly. "Senior brother Xiao Yao, I'm on your side." Junior brother Xiao. The young man's voice was a little heavy, and he stared at Xiao with a sharp gaze. "What's wrong?" Xiao was puzzled. "In the future, don't look for your sister when it's so late. I don't like it when the woman I like is alone with other men, even if it's her brother." Although his tone was calm, the coldness in it made Xiao feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He looked at the young man in front of him, and he suddenly felt an inexplicable palpitation. His 1.9-meter-tall body seemed extremely weak at this moment. "You should know what to do, right?" The young man raised his eyebrows and said. Xiaohao's voice began to tremble uncontrollably. Yes, I know, and..." The young man smiled gently and patted the young man's shoulder. "There's nothing else. Go and play by yourself." After he finished speaking, he turned sideways and walked in the direction of the mansion's gate. Xiaohao was still in a daze as he watched the young man's figure disappear into the night sky. How terrifying! Just now, for the first time, he felt that the usually gentle senior brother Xiao Yao was actually so terrifying. Even a look from him made him feel extremely uneasy. At this moment, Xiaohao was a little worried. Did the young man really like his sister, Xiaqing? Or was it just a form of possession that no one could touch? How overbearing was he to not even be close to his own brother? If they were to be together, would Xia Qing still be treated so gently in the future? I think I'm thinking too much, right? Senior brother Xiao Yao can't be that kind of person. Xiao Hao gritted his teeth and turned around to look at Xia Qing's room. Many complicated feelings surged in his heart. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed by quietly. This also meant that the Holy War had begun. On this day, the 10,000-bell city was filled with the sound of gongs and drums and the sound of firecrackers. Amidst the celebration in the city, many sects and forces, as well as countless outstanding geniuses, set off in a grandiose manner. Tens of thousands of monstrous geniuses from the various manors opened their eyes, and a sharp, sword-like light shot out of them. The battle between dragons and pythons was a gathering of wind and clouds. The Holy War had begun. The Chaos Devil World ruins would finally open again. The 93 mansions, Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qi Qianying, Chu Hen, and the others led the crowd and soared into the sky.